Hello, 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 everybody. So happy Sunday, 17th. So today could be a marker today. I don't know. There's a lot of stories going out. So we got a big lineup today. So I got all my laundry done and got everything all done. And Chico had his lunch. Warm day today. Got the air on. But we got, oh my God, there's so much intel. But I got to stay awake all day till midnight till my game gets over tonight, 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock, I'll be glued to the TV. All right. Yep, that's what I'm waiting for. All right. And it's here at home, so yeah, we got Cleveland all week. We got baseball. We play 4 games of baseball starting tomorrow here in Cleveland. We got three Billy Beans out, two from last night. They're short clips. Then third one this morning is 15 minutes. And then I got a real good one with Nick Shirley from London, British or UK, whatever. Him and his mom went there, and I got only the short clips from his mom. Um, so that's about 35 minutes or so. The Wired channel has a 45-minute one, and then Captain Ron and Robert is about, it's over an hour or something. I don't know what it was. And then all the rest of the clips we got. But we're going to start off with the small clips first. I mean, I got a clip, a 12-minute video message or a radio clip from President Trump. He's supposed to announce something. A video is supposed to come out. They're going to show on Fox. So I don't know if it's live or not. I guess Mike Chambers and Derek Johnson is going to have a video done probably by the end of the day. God dang, ads in here. So everybody, just kick back, relax all day today with a lot of good intel again today. A lot of things are going on. Hey, Vidigo. Big lineup today. A lot of stuff is coming. Oh, are you heading out to the woods? Buzz, we're gonna. I got all that stuff come out without even Mel's video yet, but she's supposed to have a video tonight. Hey, Kim. Yeah, the last 5 video shows have been really good. Today is going to be really, really good. Oh, hey, Kay, I just texted you. I didn't know you were here. All right. Carol, we got a big lineup today. I got another good Nick Shirley. After we get 3 Billy Bean, I'm playing that one guy at a 9-minute one. And then we'll get the first big one with Nick Shirley. We got Captain Ron and Robert today, but I'm going to start off. I'm going to go ahead and start because I want to get a lot of stuff out, and I'm going to start off with Peter Ducey, and our favorite senator came on earlier, so we'll play that one first.
Parity is down, and so the midterms are going to be bad for the candidates that he is backing. So what happened in Louisiana last night?
Well, Peter, here's the way I see it. Unless you're God's perfect idiot, the result was predictable. I mean, ground control to Major Tom. The polls have shown for well over a year that Senator Cassidy was in trouble. I think the president's endorsement of Congresswoman Letlow was sort of the icing on the cake. Bill knew that. But he decided to run anyway. I respect that. I thank him for his service.
Cassidy lost.
He was very gracious in his concession speech. We now got a runoff between two fine people. For what it's worth, I don't plan to get involved. A wise man once said nothing. Why? Because he's a wise man. But I don't plan on weighing in. And, you know, if one of them starts talking about my mama, I might. But otherwise, I'm just going to vote like everybody else.
And I think without asking you to weigh in on the specific candidate, it seems like this kind of supercharges Donald Trump's political, the whole political operation, or it at least reminds people that there is a president who is just a few thousand feet away from where we are sitting here right now, who still has a lot of juice.
Well, of course, President Trump's endorsement of Congresswoman Letlow made a big difference. But I'll tell you, there was another difference. My people are kind of angry right now. The political establishment at the state level put up 5 constitutional amendments and put a lot of juice behind them, and the people said no, not just by a couple of points, by an overwhelming majority. My people were also kind of angry about the election. We've always had about the process. We've always had open primaries, and our legislature went to closed primaries, and a lot of voters went to the polls this time, and they weren't allowed to vote for the candidate of their choice. They had to pick one of the 2 primaries to vote in. And there was a little bit of confusion at the election because the legislature postponed our congressional elections, but went forward with the Senate election. But look, President Trump's endorsement had a huge impact. There's no question about that. But there were other factors, and as I said, Bill's been in trouble politically for over a year, and he knew that. And I don't think anybody was especially surprised, especially after President Trump weighed in.
So Trump has still got it, as if there was ever a doubt. The candidate that he beat, Kamala Harris, has decided recently that she is going to pull herself even further to the left, especially when it comes to the idea of expanding the Supreme Court and packing it with liberals. Listen here.
And so I'm inviting us all to basically say, look, let's engage in a good old-fashioned round table where we agree there are no bad ideas. And let's invite then approaches and ideas that are about, for example, Supreme Court reform, including the notion of expanding the court.
No bad ideas. Do you think this is a winner, Senator Kennedy, for the Democrats?
Well, look, I don't have anything against the vice president. I served in the Senate with her. She's a woke-topus. She's pandering to the moon wing of her party. Nobody has ever accused the vice president of being a policy maven. Sometimes she acts like she has a billy goat brain and a mockingbird mouth, and that's a dangerous combination. My personal opinion is, for what it's worth, is that she's done. You know, she's a smoked turkey. She had her chance and had her shot, and she missed it. I don't think she'll be the Democratic nominee. I would love for her to be the Democratic nominee. And if it looks like she gets any momentum, I will happily contribute to her campaign because she would be our dream candidate. But I think she's a smoked turkey, frankly. And I don't think the columnists at the Washington Post, for example, pay attention to what she says. But, you know, those guys, they like kale and cold plunges and carry NPR tote bags. I mean, they're members of the moon wing as well, and they like what the vice president says. But I don't think anybody else is that impressed.
You know who else appreciates a good Kamala Harris soundbite would be Sunday show hosts. So we thank her. House Speaker Mike Johnson had a great line about all this a few days ago. We're going to play it here.
These are institutional arsonists. It's a dangerous thing, a dangerous gambit. You don't just blow up the system when you lose. Remember, the Democrats started the mid-cycle redistricting.
And so I think the counterpoint there would be, if the institutions are generally unpopular, is it necessarily a bad thing being an institutional arsonist?
Well, look, the American people, my Democratic colleagues keep saying we want to destroy democracy, and then they go out and try to destroy democracy. This idea of packing the Supreme Court because you don't like the way they're ruling, that's one of those bad ideas that the vice president says don't exist. I think Speaker Johnson's absolutely right, and but that's what the loon wing of the Democratic Party, which doesn't represent all Democrats, but they're in control. That's what they stand for, and frankly, that's our best weapon. I mean, that's part of our strategy of Operation Let Them Speak. The more that Vice President Harris and Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez and Mayor Mamdani want to talk like they represent the party, which I think they do right now, the better it is for, the worse it is for America, but the better it is for the Republican Party. I say, let them speak, man.
And Senator Kennedy, last thing before you go, you had a big win this week. Your resolution that says senators won't get paid during government shutdowns passed. So my question is, which senator gave you the most grief about possibly losing a paycheck for a couple weeks? There had to be at least one.
Oh, I had several. Look, this was my third try. And the first time Senator Rand Paul objected. Second time, Senator Brian Schatz objected. This time, I got Thune to let me bring it to the floor. Nobody objected. Look, it's a baby step. It's going to help. But if you really want to stop shutdowns, here's what you do, Peter. You say, look, every member of Congress loses his pay or her pay. And number two, you can't leave Washington. Now, if you did that, we'll never have another shutdown. But I didn't have the votes to do that, especially on the you can't go home part. So I took what I could, and I hope it helps. It doesn't apply to the House. It just applies to the Senate. I didn't want it to apply to the House because that's their business. But I think it'll help. But it wasn't nearly as robust as I wanted it to be. But I'll take the win.
Well, congrats, Senator, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks, man.
Okay, that was today. Now we got 3 Billy Beans, 2 from last night and 1 from this morning. Well,
6 time in Texas, about 5 p.m. We have breaking news about a massive hit on Israel.
Yeah.
President Trump, military options for both Iran and Cuba. And U.S. recon planes are up in the air. We have Russia prepping, it appears, to hit Kiev and the Baltic nations. So that's going on. So we have U.S. intel breaking news. There, about noon today, there was a massive hit in Israel in the area of Bet Shemesh, hitting a manufacturing site and surrounding buildings, which we understand have been completely destroyed and are on fire. The IDF is refusing to let police and ambulances into the area. This manufacturing facility made engines for rocket engines for the Arrow 2 and 3, plus many other missiles. It appears the strike has taken place and destroyed completely the manufacturing facility and all surrounding buildings. Since the IDF is refusing to let police and ambulances in, We have no idea about the casualties. And right now, it's unknown but widely speculated that Iran has hit Israel. So that's going on. We have this. Fox News interviewed a retired diplomat who is familiar with the government in Cuba and believes that those at the top will never give in to the U.S., capitulate, nor bring about significant regime change. So it appears that the U.S. military action may be involving U.S. military special forces that may be needed to bring about regime change. We know that Cuba is a communist regime. And in my previous video, I put out that CIA Director John Ratcliffe visited Cuba Thursday with detailing the prospects for an arrest warrant for Raul Castro, is 94, stated to be retired, but still believed to be the number one power individual. And Director Ratcliffe also detailed other actions the U.S. could take and what the U.S. wanted from Cuba, which is regime change and a change of the form of government. President Trump is receiving military options from the U.S. military regarding Cuba and Iran. Now we have this about Ukraine. So we have that Zelensky has made public the fact that he claims Ukraine intel, but most likely CIA and MI6 from the UK intel, detailing phone conversations between President Putin and President Lukashenko of Belarus regarding Belarus invading Ukraine from the north, and the possibility that Russia is gearing up for a massive hit on Kiev, especially aiming for the command and control centers, which would be the Ukraine government and military command and control locations. And we're hearing that Russia may also take some type of military action against the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, and Finland, as Ukraine has been using the airspace over these European nations to hit Russia. Russia has been blocking the Ukraine drones using electronic warfare, causing the drones to fall back and make strikes inside Finland and the Baltic states. So that's going on. And we have this. Yeah, Zelensky releases the fact that he has intel about the phone calls between President Putin and President Lukashenko. So that's going on. And for my part, I will say this about the Baltic states. I predicted that Russia would take Transnistria, which they appear to be making moves to do that. And I said at that time, they'll probably also take the Suwalki Gap, which is between Poland and Lithuania. It appears that Russia may be making moves to do this. And I said they would do this when the U.S. is out of NATO. The U.S. is not yet out of NATO, but the U.S. is in the process of withdrawing from NATO by significantly drawing down U.S. troops in Europe. Now, these European nations, Finland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, may find themselves on their own as they are pitted against Russia. So that's going on. And we have this from Promethean Update, giving us more information that came out of President Trump's recent meeting between President Trump and President Xi of China about the Thucydides Greek concept of one nation goes down in power and a rising nation overtakes it. We know that President Trump astutely had put out on social media also, yes, it could be true, the U.S. was declining under JB, but now the U.S. is the hottest nation in the world. And Promethean Update provides good information where this concept comes, a declining power and a rising power, all the way back to Kissinger. So that's going on. And we have this from New York Prepper. It appears that the U.S. May be prepping to hit Iran within days. Today, we have 5 recon planes up in the air, leaving Offutt Air Force Base several hours ago, including 2 types of recon planes. There's only 2 in the U.S. military, call sign Cobra, and both are up in the air, plus 3 additional recons, plus a doomsday plane, plus a nuke sniffer. And we have that the U.S. military and President Trump's military aides have in place plans to give President Trump options for hitting Iran. And we have this also in place in the Middle East to give President Trump additional options for the next wave of hits by the U.S. military on Iran. The Pentagon says this could be a continuation of Epic Fury, or we may have a new operation. And we've been hearing about the new operation named Sledgehammer. And in place in the Middle East is approximately 300 U.S. military special operation forces to give President Trump additional options. If it's determined that a ground operation needs to be made in Iran, these 300 special forces would be supported by thousands of U.S. military. One of the options is for the U.S. military to go in to recover the nuke material in Iran near Isfahan and other locations. And it's being put out by New York Prepper also that in the past few days, Iran has made cyber hits on U.S. service stations to take over control of the gauges of the gasoline tanks. They're not able to impact the actual gasoline. All they can do is cause problems in the gauges. So that's going on. It's good to be in prayer for America, President Trump, the U.S. military, world peace, and world health. I love you, and I'll see you soon.
Wow, no commercial on that one. So the second one from yesterday is only 4 minutes.
(2026) time in Texas, about 7 p.m. And thanks for like, subscribe, and share. This flash update will cover Iran hitting in Israel a missile and nuke site, and that for its second hit, Iran says it will sink all of the ships in the Persian Gulf. President Trump posts on social media, calm before the storm. So let's get started. We have from U.S. Intel. So in my previous video, I reported Iran had hit in Israel at Bet Shemesh, a manufacturing facility and buildings around it, believed to be the site where rocket motors were manufactured, and that the IDF is not letting police and first responders into the area. Now, this hit took place about noon today. It wasn't reported by U.S. Intel until about 5 p.m. today. Now we have new information that the central target for the Iranian hit in Israel, in the same location, Bet Shemesh, was the Sadat Micah Air Base, where Israel stores missiles and nukes. So that happened about noon today. We're not getting any information out of Israel. And we do note this afternoon the pizza places around the Pentagon went up in sales 259%. Now we have an update from U.S. Intel that Iran puts out a warning to all of the Gulf states, including UAE, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, and Kuwait, telling the citizens in those Gulf states they should evac immediately. Because if the U.S. hits Iran, Iran is going to hit all of the Gulf states' oil facilities and also their power grid. In addition, Iran said that all of the ships in the Arabian Gulf should evac, and that if the U.S. hits Iran again, Iran is saying their first hit, but they've already hit Israel, so this will be their second hit. They will sink all of the ships currently in the Persian Gulf and located around the Strait of Hormuz. And we note today President Trump posted on social media wearing his red cap, "Make America Great Again," with the caption being, "It is the calm before the storm." So it's good to be in prayer for the world. I love you, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, and now this is the first one she had for this morning. Will be 15 minutes. So, sorry about that. I got to figure out which one. All right.
in Texas, about 9 a.m. And thanks for like, subscribe, and share. Some of the things we'll cover: an IRGC shooter at a U.S. consulate. President Trump rededicates America to God. Today, Obama seeks asylum in Canada, and a conflict update. So let's get started, and also a short prayer today. So we have with space weather, we have going on today a G1 that may increase tomorrow to a G2. Today we have solar wind causing the geomagnetic storm. Tomorrow we could possibly see an increase to a G2 because we'll have the solar wind plus a CME grazing Earth. And we have today going on, streaming soon, President Trump's rededication of America back to God. It'll be an event at the National Mall in Washington, D.C., beginning at 10:30 this morning and lasting until 6 p.m. A day of Americans coming together to rededicate America back to God, as we had our first president, George Washington, beginning. And some of the speakers today will be House Speaker Mike Johnson, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. And what message I received from God was that by our highest leader, President Trump, rededicating America back to God, and this year marks our 250th year as a nation, that God would turn and bless America going forward for another 250 years of blessings and prosperity. And we say thank you, God the Father. And we have this also going on today. We had yesterday another 6.0 earthquake that was near Puerto Rico, in the area of the Puerto Rico Trench. Depth was 19 miles. So we've seen a string of 6.0 to 6.7 earthquakes in the last week or so, as a result of what's going on in space, impacting the Earth and our decreasing electromagnetic shield and an ongoing pole shift. So that's going on. We have this from Breitbart. President Trump in the state of Louisiana has endorsed a Republican. She's running for a Senate position, Julia Letlow. And she made the primaries on Saturday, so she'll be competing against in the midterm elections against Bill Cassidy, the current Republican from Louisiana senator, who 5 years ago voted to impeach President Trump over the J6 event. President Trump does not endorse Bill Cassidy, but he does endorse Republican Julia Letlow. So that's going on. And we have this. So there was a shooting at a U.S. consulate, and it turns out it's by IRGC operatives out of Iran. And this happened in March, and two men jumped out of a car in front of the U.S. consulate located in Toronto, Canada, and fired shots at the consulate.
Okay, Kara,
These same individuals had also engaged in an act of terrorism in Canada against a Jewish synagogue. So we have an arrest of one individual that took place in Turkey, and the individual has been extricated back to the U.S. Mohammed Saeed, who is a IRGC Hezbollah member. He's also been involved in 18 terrorist attacks across Europe and 2 in Canada. So he was extradited March 10. No, the shooting at the U.S. consulate in Canada happened March 10. So he very recently has been extradited back to the U.S. to stand trial. And he and other members of the IRGC Hezbollah group have engaged in stabbings, explosive events, arson, setting fire
10 minutes.
in Canada, in Belgium, the Netherlands, France, and the UK. So that's going on. And many of their hits involved Jewish synagogues, Jewish schools, embassies, and banks.
This professional 32 TW SSD, capable of holding the entire collection of the New York Public Library, is something you won't find at Best Buy or any electronics retailer, even if you were willing to drop $1,000.
So he's back in America to stand trial. We have this from China Observer that the economy in China continues to decrease. And recently, a major manufacturer, Samsung, moved out of China. And we have also information that in Japan, they had 19 e-buses manufactured in China that Japan set fire to because the brakes continued to go out on the buses and posed a safety hazard. We have this from Real Raw News, that last week in Canada, U.S. military cybersecurity had information regarding a phone call between Prime Minister Mark Carney of Canada and the Prime Minister of Spain, detailing that former President Obama was seeking asylum in Canada, and that Mark Carney was inclined to give him asylum. So Mark Carney stated to the Prime Minister of Spain that the reason former President Obama is seeking asylum in Canada is because he fears, under President Trump, military tribunals plus DOJ indictments. And we have this, that it's also coming out from the U.S. military that Obama has been seeking asylum in other nations and has received an okay for Obama to live in these nations under asylum. It's not clear to me whether these nations have extradition laws back to the U.S., but the nations in which the U.S. military says Obama has already received the right to asylum include Canada, Poland, Ukraine, New Zealand, and Kenya. So that's going on. And I'm seeing sources say that the DOJ may be indicting very soon a former U.S. president. And we have a conflict update in Israel. Last night in Bet Shemesh, we had an Israeli manufacturing facility for rocket engines and an Israeli military base, Sadat Micah, being hit. Now, at the military base, is being stored missiles, and we also understand nukes. The IDF closed off the entire area, and we're hearing that the manufacturing facility, the Israeli military base, and surrounding buildings have all been destroyed. And late last night were continued to be on fire. And the Israeli Defense Force was not allowing police and first responders into the area. So that's going on. Now we have in Iran, we had the IRGC in Iran yesterday warning the Gulf states nations, Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, Kuwait, UAE, plus Bahrain, that their citizens should evac, and that if the U.S. hits Iran again, that Iran will hit the oil facilities and power grid in these Gulf states. The IRGC also gave marine warnings that if the U.S. hits Iran again, the IRGC will sink all of the ships currently in the Persian Gulf and around the Strait of Hormuz. And we have this. Last night, Ukraine launched a massive strike on Russia, including, I believe, St. Petersburg, and especially targeting Moscow. And it's believed that the massive number of drones coming in overwhelmed the Russian air defense system. We have not heard yet what were the results, but Russia over the weekend threatens to hit Kiev, especially government buildings and Ukraine military command and control locations in Kiev, and that there's a possibility Belarus may invade Ukraine from the north. Ukraine last night posted troops along its border with Belarus, and a possibility that Russia may also hit Finland and the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. And then there is Cuba. We know something's going on with between the U.S. and Cuba. We had the CIA Director John Ratcliffe visiting Raul Castro Thursday, explaining that he could be arrested for his direct order 30 years ago as the Minister of Defense to shoot down the planes flown by Cuban Americans who were bringing aid to Cuba, and that the CIA has audio recordings of Raul Castro 30 years ago giving the order to shoot down the Americans. Or Cuba could change their government and have new leadership. And also put out that a former diplomat familiar with Cuba said it's highly unlikely that this communist regime at the top will ever leave or change voluntarily. So it's possible we could see a renewed U.S. military special forces event in Cuba. So that's going on. And now a short prayer. We pray, Father, in the name of Jesus, whom many call Yeshua, for blessings on America. We, the people, join together to seek your face and implore you to hear from heaven and bless our nation as we humble ourselves and turn away from evil. And you have promised, Father, that when a people humble themselves and turn to you, that you will hear us, forgive us, and heal our land. And we say, thank you, God the Father, God the Son, Jesus, Dominica, Yeshua, and God the Holy Spirit. I say to my family and friends, remain steady out there, continue to pray. God is in charge and He is on the move. I love you, and I'll see you soon.
Amen. Okay, we are caught up with Billy now. We're going to do a 9-minute one, the guy from TikTok, and then a 24-minute Nick Shirley, the first video.
For EPAC, it is May 17th, the year of our Lord 2026. This is EPAC, the news you need, and I'm your host, H.G. Gerner. It's really late here in California, almost 12:30 a.m. in the morning. I was up late. This is in response to a post on X by Fan Trump Army. Basically, the @Trump_Army_. This is a fan account. More importantly, what's interesting about this is that this talks about the June 2025 6-3 decision by the Supreme Court, which allows parents to opt out their children out of being indoctrinated with LGBTQ plus propaganda in their schools. Here's the interesting point. This has to do with, I guess, what you might say, religious, not background, but religious beliefs. People who are religious have a certain belief and a faith, etc. And when their children are getting indoctrinated to this community, this LGBT community, with information and storybooks, etc., this can be problematic for the child in such a way that it can actually be harmful to the family's relationship with that child. Now, here's the thing I want to say. Back in 2020, I released my book about various subjects, or what I called Marxist political warfare. My book is entitled The USSR, the United States Socialist Republic. Basically, I took that and made another acronym, which is from the Union of Soviet Socialist Republic. But in my book, the USSR, there's a little heading. It says, the USSR, the liberal Marxist machine, and the men, method, and means to fundamentally transform America. What I talk about in that book, starting on page 1 and in chapter 1, throughout the entire book, I talk about where the Marxist machine started, what direction they took. Back in 1984 is when it really got kick-started, when a gentleman came out of hiding with 2 master's degrees in early childhood education. That guy was Bill Ayers. He was a professor. He ended up being a professor at Chicago University, and he had, like I said, 2 master's degrees in early childhood education. He came out of hiding. It's a long story. Read the book. And he went right after our children to indoctrinate them in many, many ways, which basically what it was, 2 things were really prominent. One, to turn them into social justice warriors, basically to be questioning all the values we have here in America. What makes Americans Americans? Okay? In my documentary, in the first one called America on the Precipice, I show Bill Ayers and various other things. But getting back to the point, not only did he, and as a protagonist, go right after our children. The machine began to develop. And secondly, here's the interesting point. It was about breaking the parent-child bond. This is very, very important. In my documentary and in my book, and basically in the first document, I made 4. And if you go to preservingamericaephc.com, you can watch all 4 of our documentaries for free about Marxist political warfare. But in our first documentary, I show how basically I don't know if you remember the Common Core State Standards. Remember that? Back in 2010, Obama introduced that. And basically it's a longer story. But he dangled money in front of many of the states to adopt this Common Core State Standards. And the parents found that the children were having trouble adapting to this type of teaching, etc. But that's a longer story. More importantly, what I want to talk about is what this, indoctrination was talking about. And we see this very much now. It's being so pervasive and so ultra left wing in this country with regard to our elementary schools, our high schools, our secondary secondary education, and universities. But going back to the elementary schools, what this whole purpose was to do at the very young age is to break the parent-child bond. I actually show in my documentary how that bond can be broken. I won't go into that right now, but you can actually go to, like I said, go to preservingamericaephc.com, watch our documentaries for free. This talks about the LGBTQ plus, community. Now, these people make up, 2-3% of the population on Earth, and we don't want to discriminate against them. However, we need to keep that information, that propaganda, away from our children. This has to do with, what you might say, I won't use the word because TikTok will shut me down. They will cancel, wipe out this post that I'm making. But it has to do with sexual orientation. The key word being the first part of that. Children at a young age should not be indoctrinated to this at all. In my documentary, I literally go ballistic in such a way, I'm able to control my emotions, but it also in our other documentaries we mentioned, I believe it's in our second documentary as well. This type of indoctrination cannot be tolerated. And now, this was back in 2025 in June, that the Supreme Court ruled that, hey, if you see this stuff, and this is not just having to do with this particular community, but there's other things as well. But this particular ruling by the Supreme Court with regard to this community, this is extremely problematic. This post that was put up and that I'm replying to talks about that. And what's important is now, it's official now that the parents are able to opt out based on their religious, ideals, their core beliefs. We need to protect our children. And if you go to, like I said, if you go to watch our documentaries, I make bones about it. This needs to be curtailed, and it needs to be curtailed immediately because it doesn't take very much time. Once a child gets this seed planted in their head, their thinking just gets all fouled up. Then they're coming home with this information, and the next thing you know, you have problems in the family. This is a major component of what's called ideological subversion of Marxist political warfare. Ideological subversion is a major component to subvert the ideals of a society, what we grew up with as parents, and we transfer that ideology, that mindset, that thinking, that behavior process to our children. When the schools are trying to alter that, the schools should do only one thing: teach the children how to read, write and do arithmetic, etc. That's it. That is it. Please go to preservingamericaepac.com. Watch 4 of our documentaries for free.
Okay, that was our news guy at TikTok today. All right, we got the first big video, Nick Shirley, 24 minutes. Then we'll do the Janice Ellis interview. The news source had Sidney Powell, what we saw. I think a lot of people saw that yesterday.
Far right. We just want to be heard and he's ignoring us.
At the end of the day, do you think a civil war is inevitable here?
Yeah, it's been going on for years. I don't recognise my country no more. Keir Starmer is like an actual traitor.
Today, we're here in the streets of London. We have the Big Ben right behind us here today. And today it's set to be one of the biggest marches in the history of the United Kingdom. Hundreds of thousands of people are set to come in from all across the United Kingdom to come into the streets of London today. Right now, over 4,000 police officers have been employed into London, and they're using new facial recognition cameras to who comes in and out of the protest. That is something that has never happened before, and at all the major stations like King's Cross, they have new cameras that have facial recognitions, and they're tracking quite literally everyone that comes into this protest. And they have even banned journalists from entering into the United Kingdom to cover this event. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, has been outspoken against those that are attending this march, saying that this march is led by convicted thugs and people that are spreading division and hate here inside the United Kingdom. He called it racist, actually.
Tomorrow's march in London is a reminder of what we're up against in the battle of our values. The organisers, including convicted thugs and racists, are peddling hatred and division. Plain and simple.
So today we're going to be speaking with everyone here in the streets of London to see what's going on and what they have to say about what they are fighting for, as this is called the Unite the West march here in the streets of London. How do you guys feel about what your Prime Minister said about those that attend this march today?
He's a disgrace. He's an absolute disgrace. So he is. I'm not far right. Don't have a criminal record. I'm a pensioner. I fear for my grandchildren.
And what do you fear for your grandchildren?
Because of all the illegal immigrants that's coming here and they're getting everything going. I have 2 sons, can't even get on the property market.
And why do you think Keir Starmer would call people like you racist for attending this march?
Because he's frightened. He's frightened. He's on his way out anyway, and the sooner the better.
Your message to Keir Starmer?
Resign for the country's good, you tyrant.
He's calling you guys racist for being out here today.
He's full of shit, as we all know.
Yeah. Now we've made it here to the start of the march. You can hear the chants already. Everyone's yelling, Keir Starmer is a wanker. Look at this, thousands of people in the streets right now, all chanting Keir Starmer is a wanker. We have Keir Starmer on top of a right now.
How you doing?
How are you doing? Keir Starmer on top of a...
Yeah, he's a wanker.
Do you feel like this is the Great Britain you grew up in?
No. Do you think it's a Great Britain we grew up in? No, not so great now.
We're an embarrassment to the world, what this government's doing.
What do you guys think about Keir Starmer blocking journalists from coming into the United Kingdom?
It's disgusting, isn't it? Yeah, it's only for one thing, because they say things you don't like. You say things Keir Starmer don't like, he likes to block you. I'm surprised you managed to sneak through, to be fair, mate. I've just been watching you in Cuba.
I'm a bit surprised as well that they let me in.
I don't know, you managed to sneak
through. And how
through.
come you think here they're attacking freedom of speech?
Well, I know why. It's because they've got their own narrative, haven't they? I mean, I don't go all into it, but it all stems from after the war. They started implementing all these systems of anti-racism, and it just come to a point now where white man's not listened to. It's not about black or white, but native people are just not listened to in the country anymore. And it's just, put it this way, there's a Sikh guy stabbed a white kid the other day, and the police arrested the white kid because the Sikh guy said he said something racist. They handcuffed him, he sat on the floor, bled out and died. couple of days ago. Somebody Novak, his name is, young college kid. Look it up, mate.
And what brings you guys out here today?
Wow, you know what it's like, mate. It's tyranny in this country. Absolute diabolical. They're against us English.
Future, my friend. You can't keep pouring one country into this one, expecting it's going to turn out. They've got different cultures, different ideologies, and different ways of living. We want to keep our culture. I've got a granddaughter. When in 30 years' time, when she grows up, I want her to recognise the England I was born in. And if we keep pouring into this country, there's going to be nothing left.
In what ways is the England that you grew up in different than the England that your grandchildren are growing up in?
Because we keep pouring in these different cultures, these different religions into this country. And we've seen how the Islam goes. You spread Islam across the world, you spread Islam across Europe. It destroys everything on its path, on its way. I've got nothing against refugees coming in, as long as they're vetted. And we understand who they are and what they are. Come and respect our culture. Come and respect our people. That's all we ask.
And Keir Starmer has called the organizers of that thugs and racist, and has said that you guys are pushing division and hate here inside the country.
Keir Starmer shouldn't even be there. He's hanging on by a thread, and he knows he is. It's his last chance for his last chance to stand against us people. He's been calling us far-right fascists and Nazis. Can you see any far-right fascists and Nazis around here? I see grandparents, I see parents, I see soldiers, I see everyone up. It's my grandson. We're not far right, we're not fascists, we're not Nazis, we're just people who want a future for this country, and that's all we're after.
And do you think you'll ever get to the point here where people have to actually defend the country and bear up arms?
Yeah, because nobody's listening to anybody. They're just doing what they want to do. They're not asking us what we want.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm all right. I'm here for the love of Christ.
The march has officially begun. Tommy is right behind us now, leading the march. Hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people are out here in the streets of London. Here we go.
Oh, let me pray for you quickly. Heavenly Father, thank you for this man. Thank you for everything you've done. Thank you for blessing him and keeping him and continue to bless him and cover him in all ways. In Jesus' precious name, amen.
Amen. There we go. People in the streets of Britain pray.
Good to hear you. Oh my God, take your photo.
The people of London.
Come here, quick.
A new era of American shipbuilding
That was
is
funny.
here. Luke Bryan, Word on the Street Tour, with special guests.
Yes! And ma'am, they are calling people like you a racist for being out here today.
I was an NHS worker. I worked for the NHS. I was a medical emergency nursing assistant. I lost my job for showing a post from the government website how much asylum seekers get when they come to the UK. I was sacked for gross misconduct straight away. Never had a complaint about me ever in my life. So I'm here to support my nurses.
So you've been attacked by the government for speaking out against mass immigration.
Yes, I was a NHS nursing assistant. I was a medical emergency, and I lost my job through freedom to speak. And I'm going to be here. I want to show freedom to speak in the UK, and we're going to show it today.
So you have the march coming from right here, and then you have a whole nother group of people, a whole nother sea of people meeting up right here. Very well, could be 1 million plus people here in the streets of London today. You have the police on the outskirts of the march, and check this out. They have these cameras right here surveilling each and every single one of the protesters. See those cameras right there? They use those to survey the people, and then they have the body cameras as well. They have those cameras right there for any evidence, or any footage that they may need. Mass surveillance here in the streets of the United Kingdom. Your sign says,
Nick Shirley!
hello.
Oh my goodness! Hello, Nick Shirley.
Nice to meet you. Your sign says, we do not vote for open borders, digital ID, higher taxes, two-tier policing, loss of free speech, files in politics, higher cost of living, Starmer out, restore Britain. What's your message to Keir Starmer today?
Keir Starmer's a wanker.
Everything in the mandate is backtracked on. He's added things in that wasn't mandated, like digital ID. It doesn't listen to the British public. He's just had a landslide vote, and he still is ignorant.
He needs to go.
He needs to stop branding hard-working Brits as far right. We just want to be hard, and he's ignoring us.
How do you feel about the mass surveillance here of your government?
I feel like if you can do that to your own people, why can't you monitor more closely the people you're letting in who are abusing our women and children, who are taking taxpayers' money? who are living better lives than the people who are working really hard in this country, who live here, who are proud of where we are. We don't oppose immigration. We just don't want to have them prioritised above us. We're losing our culture and identity. It's not fair. We've had enough.
And why do you think Keir Starmer and your politicians are calling people out here racist, saying this is pushing division here inside the United Kingdom?
I wish I knew the answer to that question, but I really don't. I ask myself this all the time. All I know is he's not serving the British public, and these numbers prove it.
The march continues to get bigger and bigger. Right now we're in Trafalgar Square. It's completely filled, and all the way down to Parliament Square is completely filled as well. We're going to go interview Tommy in just a moment, but I want to tell you guys about the sponsor of this video, and that is Opus Clip. What used to just be an AI clipper has now become the most powerful AI growth tool for creators. And me, for instance, I've used Opus on my own, and I've received over 50 million views on a single Facebook page just from using clips from Opus. What you do is you upload your YouTube videos or your videos in general into Opus, and then it'll go through and clip those videos using the power of AI, and then you can then bulk schedule those videos onto your platforms like TikTok, Facebook, YouTube Shorts, and then those videos go ahead and get posted to all of your platforms. And they just came out their new AI editor 3.0 that comes with smarter auto framing, better virality scoring, and brand new captions. I love Opus. It makes it super simple to post your videos and get your content to go quite literally everywhere. And right now, for you guys watching this video, they're going to hook you guys up with 4 months at 50% off. All you have to do is go to the link in the description down below or in the pinned comment down below. 4 months at 50% off. I promise, give Opus a try. It is well worth it. And now let's get back into the protest. Tommy, you've done it again.
We've done it.
March.
We're leading a revolution in Britain, right?
From here in the middle of
You had your revolution through the election ballot box with Donald Trump. We're having ours right now on the street.
The entire streets of Whitehall all the way to Trafalgar are full of people. And what does this say about the current state of the United Kingdom? What do the Brit and people want?
It says that the public are ready. We're ready, right? We've been asleep for too long.
Ready for what?
We're ready to fight for our country, right? We're ready. And what you're witnessing now is a formation and an organisation. We're going to spread this through every town and city, and we're getting ready for the Battle of Britain in 2029. Our next election is the most important election in this country's history, because the enemy are no longer invading on the borders where they are, but the enemy's here. They're here. They're here, and they're betraying us.
Why has your government betrayed the people of Great Britain?
They've tried to replace us, just like they did in Minnesota. Why do you think Somalia is the hottest place in the world, yeah? They're living in Minnesota. They didn't choose there. They were put there. They were put there to think what they've done there, and think of what you exposed, and think that they all knew it was happening, but they turned a blind eye. Well, they turned a blind eye to them raping their way through our country, because they're importing voters. They're replacing us. They have 6, 7 kids. We don't. They're bringing people in to replace us that are loyal to them, that want to be dependent on the state. But we don't. The far left have had their revolution, yeah? They've had it. Open borders, breakdown of the family, attacking nationalism, patriotism. They've had it. A successful revolution. You're witnessing today the counter-revolution.
The counter-revolution.
Together, we are strong. Corewell Health. We can.
Civil war come 2029 if nothing happens.
We need to win the box in 2029. Now, to do that, you have to get the 50% of non-voters. You need to captivate them, electrify them, and give them back that sense of identity and belief that they matter. Today, everyone here knows they matter.
And your message to the rest of the West, for those that aren't here, that don't see what's happening every day here in Britain, what would you say the reality of life is?
The reality of life is women are scared. They can't walk the streets. Our daughters are being raped. They've took the safety of our nation. They've imported hostile, violent men into our communities, and then they've tried to smear us as racists or extremists for wanting protection of our women. And to the rest of the West, unite the kingdom. Look at that. Read that on that side. It says unite the kingdom, unite the West. Because this is a Western civilizational problem. They're attacking us.
Stop saying everyone out here is racist today.
Yeah, no one cares what they say. Right? Look around you. Look at the diversity. This is a lovely crowd, man.
You guys are out here. You're raising up the cross.
10 minutes,
Yes.
guys. 10 minutes.
Starmer's calling people like you guys far right.
Oh, Starmer, he needs to go. There's something dodgy about him.
What's dodgy about Starmer?
Everything. I mean, like, he's a globalist.
And what's the Britain you hope for your children, your 2 daughters right here?
At this moment in time, the whole country's in dire straits. The government are not putting the British people first. There's no housing. There's no doctor's appointments. There's nothing like that. Yeah. Keir Starmer, I mean, if we were far right, how many people can you spot of all different nationalities here? We've got Iranians, we've got black people, Asian people. Go, get to will you, Starmer. Just resign.
Just resign. That's your message?
Resign.
And
Christ is king. I would like to claim refuge in Poland if possible.
should the rest of Europe be more like Poland?
I think so, yes. Yes, absolutely.
And with the grooming gangs that took place here inside,
You've got the grooming. I've got 2 daughters at the end of the day. Even when I was a child, my younger sister, it happened with these Afghanis. Like, I'm sorry, but if you're having people coming from all different corners of the world that are not brought up with the same morals and same values, there is going to be a clash of cultures. And this is what Starmer isn't listening to. He doesn't give a fuck about that.
Yeah.
We're just meant to like pipe down, shut up, and just get on with it. No, we're sick of it. Like, this is the revolt. This is the peasants revolting.
And we want to keep our next generation safe for our little girls and our children. We want them to grow up in the country that we grew up in. And at times, diversity is not our strength. Unity is our strength, and that's why we're here today, to unify and say that we're not having it anymore.
Starmer is saying that your diversity is your strength. You would say it's not.
No. You go to the other march. That's the diversity side of it. This is unity. This is British people coming together to say we love our country and we want to keep it our country. We don't need all these open borders because it's not the best thing for us.
Right here it says the rape of Britain. Would you say Britain has been raped?
I'd say 100% it's right. This isn't a flag, it's a true story. We've had it under the Conservatives and now Keir Starmer. It's ridiculous what this man's doing.
In what ways has Great Britain been raped?
Get him out. Well, look at the
young girls are being raped on the streets. Throughout the country, it's covered up by Sadiq Khan.
Enough's enough.
Through the government, complete cover-up.
What's your guys' message to Keir Starmer? Wanker.
Keir Starmer's a fucking wanker.
Keir Starmer's a wanker. Keir Starmer's a wanker. Keir Starmer's a wanker.
And why do you think Keir Starmer's such a wanker?
The way he's absolutely destroying our fucking country.
What's been your least favorite thing that's happened over the past?
Who cares about bikers? We do.
10 years here in the United Kingdom.
I've seen my country change in 50 plus years. I don't recognise my country no more. But not only that is, I'm seeing how things went in a different country in the 30s. And it's happening here. And pardon my French, to piss on the veterans the way they have and persecuting them.
What do you think your forefathers would say about the current status of Great Britain right now?
Turn them over in the graves. Literally turn them over in the graves. Because my grandparents fought for this country. My cousins, my relatives, my uncles, my aunts, friends have died for this country. For what? For what? For these rich arseholes over there.
Over in Parliament. And do you think those that are in Parliament, you think they represent
They are
people?
the most hated Egypts this country's ever seen.
And why do you think they continue to get elected?
Because I think they like it. I think they want the division. Look at this. Every race, creed, colour, sexuality, people from all over the world, look at all the different flags. This is united. This is love. This is everyone, brothers and sisters in arms, for one cause. Freedom. Freedom from that tyrannical bunch of bastards over there. That's what it's about. People have died for this country. They've bled. They're blood soaked. In this, every part of this country, it's blood soaked. Of men and women and children of this country that have fought for thousands of years. For what? For them bastards. F*** them.
At the end of the day, do you think a civil war is inevitable here?
Yeah, it's been going on for years. I don't recognise my country no more.
So what will a civil war look like here if you guys do not have...
Like any war, death, destruction. No one wins. No one wins in war. My friend died fighting for this country. For what? To be pissed on by Keir Starmer and his lot. We're going to take you all to court for war crimes. No one wins in war, I'm afraid.
What would be your message to the rest of the world that doesn't live here inside of Great Britain? They don't understand what's
Open
going on.
your eyes, see what's going on, because if it's happening here, it's going to happen everywhere. Look at Ireland. God bless the Irish. Keir Faulty.
Right here you have a man yelling at the police officers.
I know that you're just doing a job, and I know that you guys lean one way
or the other, but there's going to come a time when you guys need to choose a side, and that guy that lives at number 10 is a traitor, and he should be tried as such. Keir Starmer is like an actual traitor. I believe that he is committing treason against the British people. I actually believe that, you know, we should drag him out of number 10 and we should put him on trial for treason, because what he's done to the British people is it can only be defined as treason. He's opened the borders, he's made a career out of protecting people's, he's made a career out of dissolving our borders.
You're a black man here at this event. They're saying this is a racist event. What's your message to them?
No, it's not.
Your sign right here says British Christians awake.
Yes, yes. We're sleeping. We've had our language has been numbed by thought process is to self-censor ourselves, and now we've become so liberal we don't know what truth is, and now we've got to wake up to how far we've slipped. Our children are now being aborted one day before birth, and we've now made this massive imbalance, and into that imbalance we put Islam, and it's been done by the left to destroy Christianity. That's the reason. We're in a hell of a mess. Hell of a mess.
Here in the United Kingdom, you can have an abortion up to the day of?
The day before birth. We've now voted for abortion one day before birth. There's one case where a little baby girl, a girl, 15 years of age, she got hold of the mifepristone tablet. She aborted.
I love what you're doing, mate. Keep up the good work, brother. Absolutely love you. All right.
Thank you.
She aborted the baby. They cut the baby's head off, arms off, legs off, put it in the food blender, hit frappe. The police did nothing.
So here in the UK, apparently this man, you can have an abortion up to the day of birth. Crazy.
So, Trump, come and save in England, son.
Now everyone is gathered here at the stage. I've been invited to give a speech, so I'm going to go on just a second. We have hundreds of thousands of people right there. We got these lovely ladies right here, and then I'm going to be going on stage right now. Here we go. All right, now it's time for me to go on stage. Here we go. We got 100,000 people out here, and here we go. London!
This is good.
USA! 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 Today I've walked with some of you here, and as I was walking, one sign really crossed my mind. There was a sign today that said we did not vote for open borders, digital ID, two-tier policing, higher taxes, loss of free speech, in politics, higher cost of living. Now your media will call you far right, and your prime minister will call you guys dangerous. But the ideas of freedom of speech are not dangerous, or the idea that you want to know who your neighbor is does not make you dangerous. It means that you have common sense. We live in a world where common sense is becoming somewhat abstract to have. A lot of people don't have it these days. In the United States, we let an entire state commit billions of dollars in fraud because we were afraid, our politicians were afraid of being called racist or Islamophobic for speaking out against the fraud. Here in the United Kingdom, you guys had young women be raped by gangs of men, and your politicians allowed it because they're afraid of being called a racist or Islamophobic. That does not make you a racist for speaking truth. No one should have to worry about where their tax dollars go. No one should have to worry if it gets spent into fraud or not, because we should have the confidence in our politicians. We shouldn't have to worry that our daughters are having to be careful who they go around, or a young woman in Scotland who is 12 years old shouldn't have to walk with a hatchet at the playground. I've been coming here to the United Kingdom for some time now, and each and every single year, these marches get bigger and bigger and bigger. I think it is time that your prime minister and that your government takes heed to your words and takes heed to the caution that you guys are giving them, because change is inevitable here inside of the United Kingdom, and it doesn't need to be done because everyone should have the right to say what they want and have the freedom of speech. And may God bless you all. And thank you, Tommy Robinson. Thank you. How did I do in my speech?
You were excellent.
Excellent. Approved?
Approved.
Perfect.
We need you and we need Trump in the UK.
That is the end of this video. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to get yourself an anti-fraud taxpayer hoodie, go ahead and get yourself a hoodie in the link down below. And remember to check out Opus in the pinned comment as well. See you guys next time.
Another great one there, you guys. Nick Shirley. Make sure you guys follow him. That was awesome. Okay, we got the next two clips. The other Kenneth Ellis. We should hear that because Sidney Powell won. Everybody was watching it too. So the next two after that, we're going to have Captain Ron roundtable. Then he has a second one. It's a 20-minute one. So we got a lot to cover.
We're here with improper Miss Jenna Ellis. I'll start by going ahead and going
First
around
one
the
is
table so that
16.
we get everybody's names. We can start with you.
Jenna Ellis.
Michael Molito.
Franklin Hogue.
Laura Hogue.
Jason Young. Nathan Wade.
Alex Burke.
Will Wooten. John Floyd.
Assistant Chief Investigator Mike Hill.
Grant Rude. And I'm ADA Adam Ney. Miss Ellis, so I want to start out by saying we've had some discussions with your attorneys. We want to be very meticulous about avoiding any attorney-client privilege issues. Because
Have
of
a
that,
good one, Kev. Okay, I'll
our
see you
normal
maybe on the
course of
second one.
questioning where we have this, back and forth, and ask you to kind of be the initiator of laying out some of the key pieces of information that you think would be beneficial to us. We're going to ask that kind of at the start of each new piece of information, you lay a groundwork for why you believe that information does not fall within attorney-client privilege. And then you kind of pause and give us a chance to either ask you questions or discuss before moving into that area. And then we'll kind of proceed down the line as it goes. Does that make sense?
It does. And I may consult with my attorneys as far as where the line is. But
if
I
there's
understand.
ever any question, if it's a gray area, we'll go off the record and you step out. Much better to take a lot of time and be over cautious.
Yes,
so
I understand.
Okay, great. Maybe to begin with, will you tell us kind of who you understand Dan Scavino to be, what capacity you worked with him in 2020, and then if there was a conversation that took place with him that is relevant, the context of that conversation before you get into the substance.
Yes. So I first met Dan Scavino through Twitter now, or formerly Twitter, now X, when he was the social media director for then President Trump. And that would have been around late 2016. My understanding from him is that he was the other person that had access to President Trump's Twitter account. And he would retweet articles and things that I had written. I first met him in person the day that I was invited to the White House to meet with President Trump when he initially hired me to be the senior legal advisor for the campaign and his meaning the president's personal attorney. And it was...
And what date was that?
That was in November of 2019. I had been a surrogate for the campaign in my personal capacity, but not compensated, and had been doing television media under the title of basically surrogate, but then was actually hired in November of 2019.
And at that time, did you consider yourself the attorney for just the campaign or also the candidate, Donald Trump? Who were your clients at that time?
I was the senior legal advisor for the campaign. So the Trump campaign, or the Donald J. Trump for President Inc. entity, was my client, and also the candidate in his personal capacity. So I had some overlap in that sense with Jay Sekulow, and it was set up that way so that I could have privileged conversations with Donald Trump as the candidate.
Okay, and that is the arrangement that stayed in place throughout 2020 and into 2021?
Yes, until I resigned or provided a conclusion of representation on that was effective January 15th of 2021.
Okay, and at the time period where they were going to start to discuss, what was Dan Scavino's role?
At the time, I believe his title was social media director for the White House. It became deputy chief of staff at the time that the conversation in question took place.
Okay.
Hey,
The conversation was
December
on December 19th of 2020 at the White House Christmas party.
Okay, and who else was present for that conversation?
A friend that I took, her name is Sunny Swan, SWANN, and she worked for the campaign as a hair and makeup artist, and I brought her as my guest that evening. She was present, and a few members of Dan Scavino's family were also present, but I don't believe heard the conversation. But he meaning Dan, had just introduced me to his family that was also there at the Christmas party.
Okay, and is it safe to say that as far as the content of the conversation, there was no posture of him asking you for legal advice on part of the campaign, or you offering any legal advice?
That's correct.
Excuse me, I wasn't clear. Who actually heard the conversation?
I'm not aware that anyone else heard the conversation. Sunny Swan was there with me, but when Dan Scavino and I were interacting, she was a little bit off to the side. So she may have heard it, she may not have. And I'm not sure that any of his family members did either. It's a little bit loud in that hallway, but his family members were present, and I had just met them and taken some photos with them.
So how, like, the distance between you and the family members, would it be 1 foot, 2 feet? What do you?
Probably, I would say maybe three or 4 feet, maybe the distance between myself and the hoax right now in this room.
Okay, and you said that it was loud in the room?
There were a lot of people at the Christmas party, and it was during the time before the president came down from the residence to speak, and we were all in that general hallway that's right outside the blue room in the White House, where the White House Christmas tree was located.
So you weren't whispering to one another?
No. We were speaking in a conversational tone.
And to be clear, this was a purely social occasion.
It was.
Okay, so given that context, what was the conversation with Mr. Scavino on that day?
He had come up to me and introduced me to his family and had said, thank you for the work that you're doing for the president. And I said something to him like, I'm sorry that we haven't been able to do more. And I emphasized to him, I thought that the claims and the ability to challenge the election results was essentially over because of the dismissal of the Texas versus Pennsylvania case from the United States Supreme Court. And he said to me in a kind of excited tone, well, we don't care and we're not going to leave. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, well, the boss, meaning President Trump, and everyone understood the boss. That's what we all called him. He said the boss is not going to leave under any circumstances. We are just going to stay in power. And I said to him, well, it doesn't quite work that way, you realize. And he said, we don't care.
And you've told us what you knew the boss to mean. What did you know we to mean in that context?
We, I believed to mean President Trump as the boss, and anyone who, including Mr. Scavino, who would have aided him in that effort, which my understanding at the time would have been some of his staff, including Mr. Meadows.
Okay. Were there other similar conversations with Mr. Scavino either that day or at other times?
No, this was in the course of during COVID, so there were not many opportunities in person, and so I did not see him in person after that occasion.
Okay, and is that pretty comprehensive as far as the relevant information from this incident that wouldn't be a part of attorney-client privilege?
Yes.
Okay, so I guess, anybody have any follow-ups there?
How long did this conversation last?
About a minute. The overall interaction was a little bit longer because we took photos.
Okay. But the actual back and forth between you and Mr. Scavino, approximately a minute?
Yes.
Right.
At the so you said this was the White House Christmas party?
Yes, one of many.
Okay. Was there alcohol being served?
Yes.
Do you know, did it appear in any way that Mr. Scavino had been drinking any alcohol, or do you have any memory about that?
I didn't observe him to be drunk or incapacitated. Certainly, I've seen a few people at that Christmas party quite intoxicated. I don't recall thinking that at the time, and he was with his family. So I didn't think anything other than he was serious.
And had you interacted with him before that day?
Yes, many times.
And so was his behavior consistent? I mean, I assume most of those times, if not all, he was not drinking. So is it fair to say that this is consistent with other times when he was not drinking?
Yes.
And you said a moment ago that you took him to be serious. Was there anything about your interchange that suggested that he was not serious about what he said to you?
Not at all. And the fact that he volunteered that after I said, I'm sorry that we couldn't do more, and specifically referenced the Supreme Court case that had been dismissed from the Attorneys General, indicated to me that he was serious, and that was in furtherance of something that he had discussed with the boss.
So this is a Christmas party that alcohol is being served. Had you been indulging in consumption of alcohol?
I did that night have probably 2 glasses of red wine.
And do you, at the time the conversation occurred, had you already been consuming alcohol?
I don't recall that specifically, but likely not, because as I came there were many people that came up to me, wanted photos, wanted to talk with me. So as I recall, I was getting hungry by the end of the evening because I hadn't even had a chance to even have any food.
So you believe that your recollection is not in any way skewed by the effects of alcohol?
Not at all. And this was also fairly soon into the evening after Sunny Swan and I had arrived. This wasn't late into the evening.
May I interpose a question too? Were any of the photos of you and Dan Scavino that you talked about?
Are there any?
Yeah, you said there were photos being taken. Were any of them of you and Dan Scavino?
Yes, it would have been me with him and also with his family. And I don't recall that I took any on my personal phone. I may have, and I could check that, but certainly multiple people of his family members did. And he may have even posted some on social media as well.
All right. So we don't have to take these in any particular order, but if there was another incident or event that you believe would be relevant, not subject to attorney-client, can you lay the foundation for that next event?
So one that would be subject to attorney-client privilege that I do believe is very relevant, I will give you kind of walk up to the line, but not go into the substance.
Why don't we start with the areas that you believe are just completely not subject to attorney-client, and then we get those out of the way, and then if there's some that we have to kind of be a little more careful with, maybe we save those for the end.
Okay, could I have a moment to discuss this? All right. So the second that I believe is very relevant would have taken place immediately after the Georgia legislative hearing, or the Georgia Senate subcommittee hearing, which is the hearing in question in the indictment.
The first one on December 3rd.
Correct. That was the only one I was present on. I didn't come to the second one. And after the State Farm video had been played, which I was not aware of, I had not been briefed on. I was watching it the same time that the general public was. after that hearing had concluded, we, meaning Rudy Giuliani, Ray Smith, Jackie Pick, and Bernie Carrick, and our team that was there came back to offices that were, I believe, a member of the legislature. I don't recall whose offices it was. I was waiting out in the hallways. Rudy was using the restroom. And one of the lawyers that worked with Ray Smith came up to me and said,
Hold on.
Yeah.
Tell us again, give us a list of names again, please.
the list of names of
You just rattled off a list of names: Giuliani, Smith, Peck. Who were the others?
Bernie Carrick, Catherine Freese was there, Myrna Tariff, and I believe that would.
What do they got? This
I think those were
one there.
The conversation that you're about to potentially get into, was that just between you and Mr. Smith?
No, it was between me and another lawyer slash investigator or friend that had procured the video on behalf of Mr. Smith.
And this is a conversation between the two of you?
Just the two of us, and I don't believe anyone else was present or heard that conversation.
Who's that person?
His name I don't recall at the moment. I can get it to you. He
larger.
yes,
Preston
larger.
Halliburton.
Yes. Thank you for that. That's actually shocking.
What was the name?
Preston Halliburton. Yeah.
Is it your understanding at the time that Mr. Smith was also an attorney for the Trump campaign?
Yes.
Okay.
Tell us why you don't think this conversation is privileged.
In consultation with my attorneys, because this was not talking to me about or seeking legal advice, nor me giving it to them, to Mr. Halliburton. And I'm not aware that Mr. Halliburton was in any capacity with privilege similar to my clients.
But it was your understanding that he was working with Ray Smith. Is that right?
Yes, and I don't know in what capacity. I think based on the conversation, more as an investigator.
But did you say you believed Ray Smith represented the campaign?
Yes.
Could we maybe go off the record?
Yeah, let's go off the record.
Okay, I got the second one here. About 13 minutes.
Will you just one more time repeat all the list of names of the people that were present when you left the Senate hearing?
Rudy Giuliani, Bernie Carrick, Ray Smith, Jackie Pick, Catherine Freese, Myrna Tariff. I believe that's it.
Okay, and you don't recall whose legislative office you went to?
I don't.
Okay. As far as the conversation with Mr. Halliburton, we are going to kind of stop there just in an abundance of caution today. So if we could pivot to maybe the next subject that you think might be relevant.
Sure. So the next subject that I think would be relevant was my later knowledge and lack of contemporaneous knowledge of the fake elector plot, as it's been called in the indictment, and my belief essentially that was shielded from the from me specifically, but also from the general public as far as what was actually going on. So what I knew at the time in terms of the electors in the scope of the timeline, and this was all happening very quickly and very fast paced. The legislative hearings in the 4 states, including Georgia, were happening, and the ask there was that they would bring themselves back into session to determine if there were any election integrity issues and reclaim their delegates under Article 2, Section 1.2 of the U.S. Constitution, and then determine what electors to send to the National Archives. I became aware that Rudy Giuliani and others were.
Before we get into substance, can you give us more about whatever you're about to tell us? Don't tell us what the information is, but how you got it, who you got it from, when you got it, etc.
Yeah, and I'd like you to speak about a third slower.
Sorry,
Yeah.
you're not the first person to
It's
tell me
okay.
that.
You tend to
Sorry.
speak quickly, but I don't want it to come out of your mouth before we can stop you.
Sure. Okay. And if you need to continue to remind me, please do.
Just take it to 33 and a third and we'll be fine.
Okay. So the information you want to know when
context, so
And-
we can, before getting into the context.
Okay. So the context is during about the second week or so of December. So this would have been after the Georgia legislative hearing on December 3rd. I unfortunately very publicly had tested positive for COVID, and so was quarantined during that time period. The first time that I actually went out in public was the Christmas party we referenced earlier. Earlier that morning, I had gone to the Trump headquarters to film The View or The Right View with Laura Trump and a few others. That was the first day I was out of quarantine.
That's the 19th, you said?
Yes.
Okay.
And so during that week, I became aware of the Hawaii case and this idea that electors needed to meet at the state capitol to preserve that potential challenge.
How did you become aware of that? Is something somebody told you, something you researched on your own?
Rudy Giuliani and Boris Epstein were the ones that made me aware of this.
Is Epstein a client?
We have had conversations about that. I would say yes, likely, because he was at the time working for the Donald J. Trump for President entity, which was my client. And so I became aware through both of them about the contention that essentially then gave rise to the substance that I won't go into yet. And I also learned much later about the paperwork element and the forging of the documents from Rachel Maddow's show in about February of 2021. So I didn't learn about that until that time when she talked about it on air.
So in that mid-December time, you kind of learned for the first time generally about the concept, and then in 2021 from Maddow, that's when you learned basically what actually happened. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
8 minutes.
So the substance of information that we're not getting to yet, what form of communication did you get that from?
Text message and phone calls.
From
Rudy Giuliani, Boris Epstein, Mike Roman, and John Eastman.
Was it a text thread everyone was on, or just individual text messages?
Both. There was one group thread that Boris initiated when, which was the first time that I learned of it, asking me to just join a phone call, and I didn't know what it was about.
And were the same people on the phone call?
Yes.
And so,
Other than John Eastman was not.
okay. And why do you think that communication is pierced for attorney-client?
Because other the text message thread, I believe, is likely privileged, but the actual phone call, there were Pennsylvania Trump delegates on that phone call.
Okay, that were not members of the campaign and that you did not consider in any way to be clients?
Yes.
Okay.
What was the nature of the text? Was it text, or was it Signal, Telegram?
It was text, and I believe it was Green Bubble, which means some people had Androids, but it was through my iMessage app on my personal iPhone.
And then the phone call, was it a Zoom, or was it like a conference call with physical phones?
A conference call. I conferenced in just through my phone.
So we're going to stay away from any information whatsoever to do with the text messages. Does anybody have any follow-up questions about the phone call?
Yes. Well, tell us everybody you remember was on that phone call. Before you tell
Before
us
the subject.
substance, tell us exactly who they were.
Rudy Giuliani, Mike Roman, Boris Epstein.
Okay, the 33 and the third thing didn't
I
stick.
apologize. Okay. Okay.
So try to speak half as fast as you usually do, and that'll probably be normal for these purposes. Okay.
Rudy Giuliani, Boris Epstein, Mike Roman, and then the Pennsylvania Trump delegates. There were several. I don't know and had never interacted with them before, so I don't know their names or if all of them were on that phone call. And then they also had at least one lawyer who represented himself to represent at least one of the individuals that was on the phone call in the capacity of being a Trump elector.
Does Thomas King ring a bell?
It doesn't.
How do you know that there were other, exactly who was on this call? You identified phone numbers, like how are you able to tell that all of these people are on this conference call?
They
introduce yourselves.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we introduced ourselves, and the only time that I spoke was introducing myself, and also from the text message thread in terms of who was invited to the phone call. I understood the people in Pennsylvania and their lawyer because of how they identified themselves on the phone call.
Who put the call together?
My understanding was Boris Epstein and Mike Roman.
And was there an agenda for the call? In other words, was there something that said, hey, we're going to have this phone call about this subject? Or was it, did you know, was it a general?
Once the phone call was initiated, then the purpose became clear based on the comments on the phone call. But leading up to the phone call, I only knew that from Boris, the mayor, Rudy Giuliani, asked me to be part of the phone call. So I didn't know what was happening or who was going to be on it when I first got on the phone call.
So your notice to join the call didn't say, we are planning a call regarding the campaign at this time on this day.
Correct. And that would go into the text messages. But without going into that specifically, I didn't know the scope of the conversation before joining the call.
Okay. On the text messages, don't tell us the content. Do you still have them?
Yes.
Okay. As to the phone call, the electors, do you know how many electors were on the phone?
I don't have a specific number. It was more than 2 or 3, but I don't know if it was the full slate.
And is it your understanding that the Pennsylvania attorney represented the Trump campaign in Pennsylvania, these electors, some combination of both, or something else?
My understanding was that it was just the electors in their personal capacity and as electors, and we did not share a client.
Okay. And I think the first time you mentioned this lawyer, you said there was at least one lawyer for at least one elector. Let's hone in on that for a second. Did you understand this lawyer to represent all the electors who were participating in the call, or was there just an elector who said, this is my +1. I brought my lawyer along for the fun?
My understanding from the phone call was that this gentleman represented at least one elector, but was wanting to understand what was going on behalf of all of them. But I don't know, and I didn't get the impression that he represented all of them, but I don't know.
Was it Lawrence Tavis?
That doesn't. And also this was, this was 3 years ago, and the outside people, the names, I just don't know.
And how long was this conversation?
I would guess probably 15 minutes by phone, but that's a guess.
And when was it?
This would have been during the week of, actually, if I could get out my phone and calendar, I could probably pinpoint it better if that's okay. Let's see, go back to 2020. So this would have been December 7th, that Tuesday.
You said December 7th?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll do this without regard to the substance of anything here that takes place in this call. Was there a discussion of some kind of legal strategy?
Am I going to answer that?
Without the, I don't want to know what the strategy was.
Right.
I want to know, was there any discussion of legal strategy during the call? Okay, let's stop.
Go off the record.
Yeah, let's go off the record.
All right. I figured out since we did Sydney yesterday, we might as well, we got those two important interviews out. All right, so the next we're going to do, it's a 2-hour captain. I'm going to do an hour and save the second hour for tonight. There's a short Captain Ron and Robert I want to get to before the end. So we'll get the first hour, then I'll get the other stuff tonight. See how long we can get going here. This was the 16th. So that was yesterday, I believe.
Ourselves, I say the words to you tonight. We will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again.
Well, hello everyone. Captain Kyle here, and welcome to the end game. We have our wonderful hostess with the mostest, Kelly, which is incredible. She does everything here. So she is really the reason we are where we are today. So just give you credit where credit's due, sugar. And we have Mr. Robert Kraft. And before we get started, look, he's here. He's not the wall
Another Billy
anymore.
Bean came
We're not going
out.
to go into
12
the details because
Hey, whoa, I can wall you. Watch this. Watch this. I can wall you. Hold on.
it's really complicated on how it had to be figured out, but it got figured out. So it took a team of experts to figure this one out. So it was great. And we're not going to say which one was what. So, So before we get started, let's go ahead and pray and bring in the Holy Spirit to this conversation. So, dear Heavenly Father, thank you for all that you're doing. Lord, we just ask for your continued discernment, your blessing. And Father, we just thank you just for all that you're doing in the world today. Lord, we want to show our gratitude and everything that we do, because through our gratitude, not from what we see, not from what we hear, but what we feel inside of our heart, knowing that you're there and that everything is already mapped out and planned. Father, we thank you for allowing us to participate in your plan for humanity, not our plan, but yours, and that you don't need us, but you're allowing us to participate in it. Father, we thank you for that. Lord, we ask for a hedge of protection around President Donald Trump and all the leaders in the military that are doing those things in which are a part of your plan as well. Father, we just ask for your blessings on them. We ask for blessings on their families, because they're the ones that undergird and support them through everything that they do. They go through these trials and difficulties more so than people realize, because they are there in the background and they're vital to their success. Father, we thank you for you supporting them. Father, we just ask that you continually show your sweetness to all the people of this world. Allow them to come into a personal relationship and contact with you, and to be able to weed through the noise of this world. And then after that, the noise that is in our heads, that can sometimes be the loudest. Father, we just thank you for the peace that passes all understanding and where we are today. Father, we thank you for it, and we praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, so let's get started. So with that, last time we talked, we were talking about things that were going on here in Texas and with the Alamo. And would you like to give us any updates on that right there before we get started moving into the vein of where we're headed next?
Yeah. So nothing's changed as far as the Republic of Texas. What has changed is our as we proceed, we have discovered that the Daughters of the Republic of Texas have basically turned over all their archives to the public library system, and they have basically abandoned their stewardship of those archives. So those archives can't be used in law. Secondly, they have incorporated themselves under the federal government. They have their attorneys, the failed American Bar Association attorneys that either gave them bad advice or did it on purpose to convince them to abandon their assets and holdings. And as far as the Daughters of the Republic of Texas are at this point, they are unusable and unrecognizable as far as how our trust is structured in the jurisdiction. They don't have capacity to get to where we are. So we are not going to be able to let them in. If we proceed, which we are proceeding with the Alamo situation because we have to get the Alamo back, it'll end up running through the Michigan General Jury Assembly, who has kept their separation status and their registration with the Secretary of State for Michigan.
Okay, so now I wanted to have some clarification so that people can understand when people are buying shares into your organization, right? They are founders and members of the organization, and that they are not buying membership shares to the Republic.
That's correct. They are
Could you
funding.
explain that? Because people are confusing that you're actually buying, like, I'm buying into the Republic and it's costing me money to be a part of the Republic. And no, this is not. It's about supporting the organization.
A mission.
That is,
a mission.
That is, yeah, which is doing the work to actually, you're participating without donating.
Right. You're participating. You're purchasing
But getting
shares.
recognized, right?
And you will get recognized when we get to the capacity of being able to recognize you once we have the jurisdictions up. The shares are fundamentally to facilitate putting in all the infrastructure that needs to be done so that we can get the mission done where we want to go. Where do we want to go? We want to go to America. We want to go to North America. We want an operating judiciary. We want to be able to put our assets in private holdings. We want to be able to separate our public persona from our individual status. At the point of us getting all this stuff done, we didn't have the capacity to do any of that. It's only through those people who purchased those shares to found the infrastructure to get to where we are now that we're able to even be where we are at this point. We
So
would have
you
never
would-
gotten here if those founders would not have supported the mission to get it done.
So that would be saying, in layman's term, I guess, that by buying those shares, they are actually facilitating the ways and means for this to be able to be established.
To actually take place, yes. So
there you go. There's the explanation.
That's it.
That the questions were written about, and I don't want to hear anything else about it because it's about supporting the organization that's doing the work. It's paying for that to happen. Because why? Everything costs money. And we do these things out of our own pocket and everything else all the damn time. And sometimes whenever you take something as just like Robert has done, is actually taken it as his full-time position now, that is supportership for his mission to do the work that is being done. And to do that, it's not pie in the sky. It's not just where all of a sudden it's happens and there's no energy exchange. Sorry, but energy has to be exchanged. That is the compensation for the work and the funding that has to take place to file these papers, to do the travel, to do the work that needs to be done. So is that what this is all about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And here's the other side. You have to look at it. If you're an observer, okay, and you're an observer who's in a position of authority to be able to facilitate the return of the American people's holdings, the return of the American people's assets, you have to see that there is support.
Yes.
That's how you measure. That's the measurement of support. How much funding did they get? How much donations did they get? How much came in? Are there people getting on board to support this cause? Or do they not care? This goes back to Citizens United. Citizens United specifically said financial contribution is a First Amendment right, okay, is protected by the First Amendment. You have to put the people that are doing the work, the actual actions, in the position. You have to facilitate them to do the work. This is a lot of work. It's a lot of there's no infrastructure, and a lot of people don't understand. There's nothing. There was nothing. There was everyone thought that we had all these things that did not exist, and now because of the people that have. So go ahead.
No, I was just saying that. So this is the grassroots from the bottom working its way up, and this is how it's being facilitated, and the work that's being done to meet the top down that's coming the opposite direction, which it's being funded by the U.S. government.
On the other side.
On the other side. Coming the other way to actually reform the proper jurisdiction and the proper
so far, everybody's okay with this?
The republic to now be reestablished. And so that's correct. So when I talk about the top and the bottom coming together to do the handshake, meaning that means they're coming together in the position that the top work, so to speak, meaning the facilitations on the how would I say that?
Well, I mean, let's make an example right now. What do we have? What do we have that just happened? You have the Department of War. You have the White House talking about hemispherical jurisdiction.
Yes.
They were
Okay.
not
Now
talking
that is
about
correct.
hemispherical jurisdiction 2 years ago.
That's correct.
We started talking about it. We started setting ourselves at hemispherical, saying we are North American continent in the Western Hemisphere, and now they are building out that hemispherical jurisdiction. They are taking the U.S. border to the Western Hemisphere and saying this is America, and everything inside the 35 American states. We were talking about the Organization of American States how long ago?
Yes.
We've been talking about the Organization of American States for how long? And now you got Southcom. Now you got Northcom talking about we will be in alignment with the OAS. If we're not in alignment with them, we're going to have their support. Nobody even knew who OAS was 15 months ago, 18 months ago. Nobody had any idea that there was American states inside the United States 18 months ago.
Yeah. So, okay. So that is a good example of what we're talking about on the top. And that can only be facilitated by them, period. There's no way that from the bottom up, meaning from the counties, states, and this jurisdictional boundaries that we have to operate with, that could never be done in a hemispherical sense, not from the bottom up. It has to be two groups that are working simultaneously in their realm so that they can come
Transcontinental
together.
Railroad.
And exactly. And so
one's going west, one's going east.
And we're meeting somewhere in the lower tier because there's a lot more that has to be done on their side than on this side overall in general. But the framework and the start is what had to happen. And that had to happen with the grassroots. So even when General Flynn started talking about community work, community being, how did he say that, Kelly, about the community stuff? Exactly.
Yeah, I'm listening. Who was it, Captain? I'm sorry, I was answering somebody in Rumble.
General Flynn, when General Flynn was talking about the community importance about, buy local, work local,
Yes.
Do those things local. That's the start of the groundwork that needed to be done within the ground level. This is taking that ground level ideology and moving it through the jurisdictional boundaries from state to state and jurisdiction to jurisdiction so that it can meet with the hemispherical, which is the entire side of this freaking world. So, which is a completely different aspect, right?
Right.
And Robert, I get a lot of times DMs saying that they're confused by a lot of the things that you speak of because it is new information for them. I just reassure them that something like this is going to take time to, soak in and understand how it's a piece of the puzzle, right?
Yeah, I think that, and what we're going to do is we're actually getting ready to launch a instructional session where we're going to get more into the meat and potatoes of this stuff, so people can get more comfortable with the language and the concepts and the ideas in a more specifically direct application stuff, because it's really hard for people to grab. We've been taught poorly. We've been educated poorly.
Yes.
And we've been taught that there's one law, and that's the civil law, and your authoritarians are in charge, and they've never heard of concepts about U.S. trade law or workers' rights versus employment law, right? And how these are different. These are different types of law. They come from different premises, and they don't understand that there are these different layers that have been here, unfortunately required putting in infrastructure to be able to facilitate those things acting or operating within the local county communities, within region, district areas, within the state, within regional areas, within the state territories. We haven't had provincial law and territorial law, continental law, international law for a very long time. Not because it wasn't available, because we did not build out the infrastructure and put the mechanisms in place so that we could operate those types of laws.
Well, there was at one time, but
there was, but it went dormant.
That's what I want people to understand. So it's not like we're building something that was not already there. And they did this intentionally over the long game so that they were able to bypass certain elements that were within each one of those jurisdictions. And so this is leading me into the next part of this, which you talked about a proscription of the labor standards and so on and so forth, and how that ties into the placing us into the wrong category as individuals working. And because it's placed us in the wrong category working in these corporations and companies that we work in, forces us, and it forces the companies to actually operate within a W-4, which is for actually foreign people that are working in the United States, and for the people that are actually within the District of Columbia and specific governmental workers. That's the way it was defined. And so the Supreme Court actually just made the ruling back in 2024 about the direct tax is the only income tax off of people's wages, which defined means that that's imposed by the state to pay for a federal tax, not actually based on your actual wages. That is considered an indirect tax and is not taxable under the IRS codes. And so the case that it was actually in was about something completely different. It was about wages and stuff, and it was about foreign investments and whether or not it was taxable and so on and so forth. But what happened is, in that 34, 36 page explanation of the ruling, the Supreme Court actually defined a direct and indirect tax within it, which actually changed the context of whether or not you're supposed to be taxable or not. And the W-4 that we all fill out and we've all done is not for a
employee,
an individual.
Individual is the right word.
That has income, because that isn't my actual property. That is not direct taxable.
Because it's not income, because income's defined as a gain.
I'm saying that it's my property.
It is a wage. It is a wage.
Because you're exchanging energy, which is one for another. Okay.
Right. It's an exchange.
It is. That is makes it a. For us, it is. We're in the wrong category, and we should never have been filling out W-4s. They actually changed the W-4 form several years ago to hide that, because it used to actually be on the top of the W-4 forms for actual foreign entities that are working within the United States paying income tax. And so, and how does this tie into the same thing with this labor and the prescription that you just talked about in the other? Because this is all ties into those jurisdictions that are incorrectly being enforced.
Correct. So where we're making the point is at the NGO level, where you have the International Association of Firefighters, you have the Fraternal Order of Police, you have the American Bar Association, who's been facilitating this through their agents who are civil attorneys or officers of the court and their judges, including federal judges. And the problem is that you take the International Association of Firefighters. Well, international law is human rights law. Okay? International law and the International Association of Firefighters is a social civil organization registered with the Organization of American States, which makes it a trade union. Okay? Under U.S. trade law. Well, what the International Association of Firefighters was doing and what these other trade unions were doing is that they are registered as an NGO, social civil organization under U.S. trade law.
So is that like, and I want to ask you, hold it, start, I don't mean to stop you right there, but does it, because I want to apply this to other things if that's possible, okay?
Yeah.
Is that also means like your carpenters unions, your plumbers unions, and all of these other, like the U.S. steel workers unions, the U.S. auto workers, and so on and so forth. Are they
that is the
same?
U.S. workforce. And
And
what
are
they
they-
were doing, what the attorneys were doing, and they were conspiring with in-house attorneys, is that they were signing U.S. trade contracts under U.S. trade law because they were with OAS and they were registered as a social civil organization and an NGO under U.S. trade law to provide labor and a workforce, and then they were getting paid by the members, and they were never requiring their DOT worker status, the TWIC cards. The TWIC card makes you a U.S. worker. That's where you go from employment law to workforce. And that's where you fall under the worker. And because the USMC
So let me ask
treaty,
you this. So the way they defined having to have a TWIC card here in the state of Texas, which is your Texas Workers Identification Card, right? Which when you do that, it's like, I mean, seriously, people, it's like doing a complete background check. Everything's freaking, I mean, it's like actually going down and filing for your passport and shit. I mean, it really is like that. And when it renews, you can't use it for the renewal.
Right.
You have to use all original paperwork on the renewal. It's not even considered a form of ID for the renewal. Okay. And so they framed this as needing to be for MARSOC facilities. That's how it's been framed. Because
That's how it was
everybody
framed.
doesn't require.
That's not what it means.
I get that. That's why I'm trying to bring this forward so that people can understand.
Here's the problem. Here's where the problem lies. Especially when we come to emergency incident management and hospital facilities. Those people fall under the National Incident Management System.
Yes.
Which is a national security apparatus under Homeland Security. Which means that every one of those employees are supposed to have a TWIC card, the background check by the Department of Transportation, and specifically anybody that works in EMS, because EMS was founded as a white paper document under the Department of Transportation. Which means if you provide any form of first response, any form of healthcare, any first responder, you are required to have a TWIC card. You're required to be under a U.S. worker status, okay? You are not an employee. It is a national defense matter. It is a national security matter, and you are to have a background check by the Department of Transportation. The unions, the trade unions, specifically, when we get to the Fraternal Order of Police, we get to the International Association of Firefighters, okay? These NGO U.S. trade union organizations specifically deprived the knowledge to make sure that their members were recognized as U.S. workers under national incident management, under Homeland Security, even though you had to have the training, even though I've got incident management, national incident management. I've got
Yeah, I did
100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, and 700. So I was required.
Become the incident management facilitator so that you could be
emergency response.
So what you could become incident command pulls all those jurisdictions together under the command structure, which is federal.
Which
you have
makes
to
it
do
a
it through federal.
national security matter.
Yes.
Which makes it a national security matter. It's a homeland defense matter, which means every one of these dues-paying members and every one of these in-house attorneys that were collaborating with in-house attorneys at state, federal, local governments that were under U.S. trade law were specifically not making sure that the members were qualified as U.S. workers, keeping them foreign, which is technically domestic espionage and a national security risk. We're talking about the nurses, we're talking about the doctors, we're talking about the surgeons, we're talking about the paramedics, the EMTs, the firefighters, the Department of Transportation workers, we're talking about the police officers. All of these people are U.S. workers. They are in a different U.S. trade jurisdictional status, and their attorneys and their in-house counsels hid the evidence, lied about it, so that they could not be U.S. workers and they could keep them in employment law, so they could fire them if they ever brought up anything that had to do with fraud, waste, abuse, corruption, homeland security issues, national defense matters, and they could fire them with no rights. And that's how they did it. And that is waging war against the American people, and it is a national security risk and a homeland security issue. And these in-house counsels, these American Bar Association, these judges, these federal judges, these attorneys, these in-house counsels, these administrators for the International Bar Association, the administrators for the International Association of Firefighters, Fraternal Order of Police are criminal espionage, waging war against the United States. And they did it on purpose. They did it on purpose, period.
Yeah,
That's how it is.
Yeah. So, I mean, I understand because, like I said, they, put us into the TWIC program, right? But it wasn't for these purposes and what was revealed to us. It was framed because these are MARSOC facilities, which that means it's under control of the maritime governmental situation for the Marine Coast Guard.
Right. But they're falling under U.S. trade. They're actually Admiralty. They're over maritime. They're Admiralty cards, right? And they're actually under U.S. trade.
Mm-hmm.
But the background check is by the Department of Transportation.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at. And you have to use original documents. Like you have to have your original birth certificate from the county.
Right.
And it can't be a copy either. It has to be exact because the only copy has to be a copy that comes from them, from their official printed document, which is on specific paper, right? That's what validates the copy, not that
I'm going to try to go ahead and get this whole thing in, guys.
Nope, won't work.
So
I don't want to
why is it that every police department does their own background investigation? Every fire department does their own background investigation. No. You are cleared through the Department of Transportation. You have a TWIC card. That is who does the background investigation. Because if there's a problem, that is who has jurisdiction. But they wanted to make sure that the Department of Transportation didn't have jurisdiction and that those individual workers never got rights at work, never were U.S. workers. They were foreign and they were left in employment law, and that is a deprivation of rights under the color of law. And frankly, to me, it's political espionage.
So that explains as well how they have intentionally kept people in the identification of being a foreign worker and then holding them in that foreign worker category for a W-4 to be filled out by the employee within the employer to be held for the government.
Yep. To be held in a foreign status so
Yes.
that you are subject to accusation with no due process. And if you raise any issues about fraud, waste, abuse, corruption, theft, whatever else, they can just call you crazy and point a bunch of fingers at you. There's no rights, even though there's negotiated U.S. trade contracts. They specifically made sure that the dues-paying members that funded the facilitation of those trade contracts never were actually protected as U.S. workers, ever. And they did it on purpose.
Yeah. So one of the things that I am fighting right now is with the IRS. And how many people do you know that you want to fight with the IRS? Because normally that's not a good thing. I have been in a legal battle with them for some time now because my company deducted my wages from me. Okay. And this is called, they put a hold letter into my company. It's called a freeze letter. The freeze letter means that they did this about 2011. And the freeze letter means that they do not allow me to actually, the company doesn't allow me to change my employment status, deductions, or anything else. It is defined specifically by the IRS. The IRS has defined it as I am single and no dependents. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. They sent this letter. It's called a freeze letter to my employer. And so I cannot change my deductions. I cannot change my status. I can send it in, but they won't adhere to it because the freeze letter is there by the freeze letter. And there is no due process for me to have that changed without taking them and fighting them in court, which that even with all the advisory information that I've gotten from attorneys and everything else, it is a non-winnable case. They're just going to drag it out and I'm going to lose money, and then I'm just going to continue being a target. And so in this process, I was in legal battles because I've been fighting these different corporate battles and stuff like that. Back in 2020, where I was in a corporate battle with these attorneys that actually did malpractice on behalf of a mortgage entity that was based on securities fraud. Okay. And I was fighting these people on that. So at that point, the IRS had owed me money that they had never sent me. And I had talked about this in the past.
Welcome to the club.
Going back all the way to 2015 and 2016, they had owed me, $16,000 to $20,000, right? Different numbers. And they had never paid me. And so basically in 2020, I'm like, fuck them, excuse my French, but I ain't filing no more. Just not going to do it right now. So this is where I made the mistake because in not filing, even though they had collected the monies being sent to them, I figured at one time when I was done with those cases that I would just file my taxes and get that money back, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there is a 3-year limit on how much you can file and get your money back. And I had 6 years of it. So they got to keep the first 3 years that I didn't file, which they got their money, which is close to about $60,000 that over those 3 years of me doing my taxes. Actually, a little bit more than that on what I was supposed to get back. What I actually paid on top of that was over 100,000. Okay, for those years. That was 60 that I was supposed to be getting back.
And I'll be back.
Can't get it back, can't claim it, can't do anything because it's past the 3-year window. And so I had to do just the 25, 24, and 23 taxes that I can get back. Filed those in January. In January, they actually received it, and about a week and a half later, they actually sent me an information saying that I had to validate my W-4s. I had to do the fraud identification, do all this bullshit, right? I had to jump through all these freaking hoops. And so about February the 22nd or so, I ended up actually being able to contact them after like hours of sitting on the phone with a specific number, being able to call them for this very fraud identification. After going through that process, basically I waited around after doing all of this. You have to do every line of, you've got to go through your whole thing, everything, where it's validate this, that. They want to validate everything. So I went through, did everything on every one of the returns, everything. So about March the 9th, March the 12th or so, basically they sent me a notice saying that my returns were now on hold. All 3 of those were on hold for them to verify my 2022 tax return that they didn't have where I owed them any money. And so I have actually called and been fighting them ever since because they have not processed my 2022 return, haven't done shit with it. I have the actual receiving date where I sent it certified to them, and they have had it now for going on 60 days and haven't even attempted to start processing it. Called them and accelerated it to the managers, meaning what's it called? It's I can't remember. My accountant's doing it. And so I'm having to do it with him. But anyway, I'm fighting this process for me to try to get back monies that they owe me that they still haven't done. And it's over the last 6 years, we're talking well over $110,000 of my money that they have either kept or they're still holding, not paying me at this point. So
I've got the same problem where the Department of Labor ruled that Charlotte County government committed fraud, and they were told to reinstate me and back pay me all the way to July of 2020. Charlotte County government, the 19 individuals, including the entire board of county commissioners and their in-house counsel, plus the union, plus the IAFF and everybody else, were given formal notice, and they just ignored it. So then I billed it to the IRS, which is their baby. The IRS's job is to make sure that all debts are paid. And the IRS asked for validation documents. So I sent them the report from the Department of Labor where Charlotte County government had committed fraud and was advised to back pay and pay this, and never heard from the IRS again. And when I checked the status of the refund is in processing. That was 2022. And I'm like, wait a minute, because this was the argument. You issued the EIN to Charlotte County government. That makes them your baby. They have been determined to have committed fraud, and they owe back wages to a private individual. Your job is to make sure that all debts are paid. That is your duty. You have the power to go to them and take those funds, period. So you're either going to do your job or you're going to be a conspiring entity with them, and we're just going to prosecute all of you under international law. So they've chosen to be prosecuted under international law once we get those courts up, and they will be co-cartel members. And that's how we're going to handle it. And basically, people are going to do their job, or they are going to be a party to the damages, and they're going to be responsible.
So
you got two options.
I want people to understand, this is the reason that I brought this up specifically, is that we're all dealing with certain kinds of issues that are different magnitudes for different people. It doesn't matter that it's, mine's, 6 figures. It does, none of that matters. What matters is the what it means to you. It could be $100. It doesn't fucking matter. Yeah. I'm just letting you know that we are all dealing with certain aspects of the corruption, the evil, the shit that's going on, that we are fighting the system as hard as we can over this process. And we all got skin in the game here. We all got skin in the game. And
you're making a good point. You're making a good point, if I can jump in.
Absolutely.
It's when I was in Michigan, I stood in front of 40 people. They brought in a whole group with the MGJA, and I sat up there for a couple hours, and we were talking about this. And I made the point to say, and I'm going to say it here for everybody. If you think you got to this channel, and if you think that you're sitting on this podcast, or you're going to listen to this whole thing, or you're going to listen to parts of it, and you're going to try and rationalize it, and you don't have a personal, individual event that took place, you are out of your mind. This is personal.
Yes.
This is individual. You are not here. You are not in this space. You are not trying to understand. You are not researching. You are not trying to find associations or alliances or affiliations with groups that are trying to figure out how to get this mess under control, unless you have your own individual specific event that took place. So what I tell people is, this is personal. Make it personal. This is about you. You are not sitting here unless there is something that's about you. And don't ever forget that. Don't ever forget. We are all walking our own road. We all have our own story. You have your story too. You wouldn't be here if you didn't have one. Make it personal.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Absolutely.
It may be business for them because they're too dumb to know that when you mess around, when you fuck around, you're going to find out. Yeah. When you say it's business, the other person's going to tell you this was personal.
Yes. And so I want people to understand that exactly what he said is that we're all going through all of these individual circumstances, but it is collectively, we're also going through it as a whole to fix the damn problem. That's the thing, is everyone does have their own individual journey, their own individual experiences, and no two are exactly alike. They may be very similar, but there are no two that are exactly alike. And so your story is your story, and it is important for you to understand exactly what Robert just said. Make it personal and understand that it is very important that you stay true to exactly why you're here and why you're going through this stuff. Because no matter what, you're going to experience things that are going to question whether or not you stay, whether or not you give up, whether or not you continue on. Some people actually take the off-ramp and exit this life altogether because they don't want to deal with it anymore. So you have to know where you have to plant your flag, and that has to become your truth, and you have to be able to stand on it. And in doing so, you're not having to do it alone. That's the important thing. It may be your individual issue, but you're not doing it alone. We are all fighting this battle. in different areas and in different ways and means, but we are all fighting this battle. All the way up to the top where Donald Trump and the military
Hour and 7 minutes. Hour and 7.
Yeah, absolutely. The military is getting absolutely. I mean, listen, they're in a good situation now, but make no mistake, these military members that are getting out, they're getting shuffled over to the VA. They're getting abandoned. They're not getting told how to properly out process to get their paperwork done, to be allowed their civil liberty, to appoint their trust administrator that's not the state and returning back to the public. They're getting sucked under VA. Every military member, every single one of them, has earned the right to designate their trust administrator, who is not the civil court, who is not the American Bar Association, who is not a federal judge. They are not a federal individual. They are a national, and they are not being told to record their DD-214s. They're not being – listen, we finally got to the point that one person got far enough in the VA system to try and get their discharge review as an honorable discharge. And he told them that he wanted a copy of his SF-50, his
Hey,
national
Pango.
birth certificate, and he wanted a copy of his military driver's license. And VA dropped the case and closed it. No explanation. Dropped. Gone. So every military member, if you're in the military and you're currently active duty, or you know somebody that's active duty, this is where they're headed. They're headed right back to where they were 18 and they were sitting in the public. They are not Americans. They have been deprived of those liberties. They have been deprived of the right to specify who they want to administer their trust, and not getting shuffled into VA, into that quagmire of garbage that VA is. So this is affecting everybody in one way or another. And we have to start to understand that. We have to start to understand this thing. When we start talking about international law, we start talking about the Department of Interior, and we're talking about National Park Service, and we're talking about the Secretary of Interior handling certain things. I mean, you're seeing them. Since when did the Secretary of Interior get pulled into Congress? Right? That never happened. Like, where's that coming from? Because Congress has no authority. So we have to understand that these people are losing their mind because nobody respects them. They don't have any authority. They are, and this is something that I want to talk about if we can lead into this. I want to understand how the United States border and our War Department is talking about the Western Hemisphere. Our Southcom and Northcom is talking about being in alignment with the Organization of American States. That we've already come to the conclusion that the NGOs that are under U.S. trade law, the trade unions, are social civil organizations for the Organization of American States, and that's where they're residing. I want to understand how, with all of those jurisdictional boundary things, with the Western Hemisphere and the Americas and the 36 American states and the Organization of American States, how the Congress for the United States of the Congress of the United States of America, that's only the 50 United States of America states, is still sitting in that Western Hemispherical Capitol building. There are 36 American states that are negotiating trade, that are negotiating economy, that are making alliances, bilateral hemispherically. How are these idiots still standing in that building? Get them out. They are 1/36th of the jurisdiction of the Western Hemisphere. Get them out. And they're a bunch of clowns that ask all kinds of things about stuff going on. They got the capacity to regulate commerce within the United States of America. They're doing everything but regulating commerce within the United States of America. They're talking about Iran. They're talking about the other side of the hemisphere world. They're talking about all this garbage. They're talking about they spent $30 million to redo a freaking a sewage dump swamp reflecting pool. And then Trump sets up and gets it done through the Department of Interior. And these morons want to bitch about it as if the federal bid contract has some status. Yet $30 million of lowest bid. You fucked up. Why? Because there ain't a thing that you touch that is not fucked up. You're out.
And I think it cost him like $6 million to get it done in like a fucking couple of weeks or something.
They spent $30 million, and then they have the nerve to stand up there like a buffoonery of stupid and bitch about, it violates our federal bidding. Your federal bidding sucks. Take your federal bidding, stick it up your ass, and march right the fuck out of the whole fucking town. Get out. You are 1/36th of the Western Hemisphere. You do not belong in that building.
So
that is a Western Hemispherical Capitol building. Get out.
Yeah, but that was all a part of how that 10-mile square was actually cut out specifically for that specific purpose and made a city-state through.
Right, but we're not in that
I
world
get it,
anymore.
but we have to be able to transition out of it where the public understands it. Because how many people, and this is important though, Robert, listen, this is important. How many people do you think actually understand anything that's going on right now, specifically in the concept of globally? Not just here in America.
But that's not.
Okay?
But that has nothing to do with the application of law.
I get that, but you can't just go and just apply something without having a somewhat contextual understanding for the people to see it before you go throw all these motherfuckers out of Congress, okay? Because people will lose their shit. People can only change so fast.
Move them to the United Nations building in
I
New
get
York.
it.
Move them to World Trade Center 1.
I get it.
Move them to Chicago where they started.
No, I get
That's where they
No,
belong.
I get all that. And that we are in the process of doing these things, right? But people can only. So this is where I want people, and you're in this category as well, Robert, because you know what you know, right? So am I. And in that, we have to be understanding that the average person knows about 1.0001 of what we actually know about what's actually going on.
That's true.
And because of that, if you were to go and implement these things without having some kind of knowledge, society would break down at the fucking core and we'd have complete chaos. This is something that's factual. And so this is why this exposure is kind of happening the way that it is, so that people can take it one bite at a time. And yes, it sucks immensely for those that are in the know. And the longer and the more you know, the worse it is, because it's like you understand it's all fucking
That's
fraud.
true. That's true.
And because of that,
Well,
we're
listen,
wanting it to be faster. But if you do it faster, I'm going to tell you right now, society will break down and we will be in a complete fucking chaos of anarchy.
You're probably right. You're probably right. I'm not going to argue with that. But I am going to say this. I'm not going to butt you. You're right. And I want to say this.
You can shoulder it. There's no problem with that. And I'm okay with that.
Right. But like, you know what I want? Listen, I would love to testify in front of Congress. I would love it. I would love to go into that room. I would go in that room. You know what my first question would be? What exactly does this have to do with the regulation of interstate commerce?
They won't even know what you're talking about.
They would have no idea what I'm talking about. It says right here in Article 1, the power to regulate commerce. Please tell me what form of legislation you were working on regarding the regulation of commerce, okay, in these proceedings. How exactly are you forming legislation for the regulation of commerce in the questions that you're asking? Because that's your job. That's your job. That's what it says. You got the Navy, and you got to regulate commerce. That's all it says. That's it.
And you know,
so every question outside of the perimeter of the regulation of commerce, okay, is actually superseding the limits of their
well,
mandate.
I agree, but that's always been the purpose, is to assume authority and control that you don't fucking have. Right. As long as people don't know it, you can't push back what you don't know. What you don't know, you don't know. And that's how they have actually operated.
I would love to sit in that room and have them question me, and me sit there and go, I'm confused. This is Article 1. It says Congress of the United States. That actually makes you foreign, by the way. Just so in case all of you didn't know, you're actually a foreign entity, not in the United States. You're actually of the United States, which makes you foreign, not domestic, which is where I am, which is where we are, because we're the people, right? And tell me how this facilitates the regulation of commerce in the United States of America, please.
Of course, that's the thing. And we are getting there. This is the problem, because it has been such fuckery for so long. It's like trying to undo it's like actually trying to put a major vase back together after it's been thrown up against the fucking wall, is now in a bazillion fucking pieces. And it's like,
well, this one we're building with gold.
And so, yes. And so, you know, in all reality, that's how fucked up things have become. And so we are headed in that direction, and things are being facilitated. And this is, yes, we are kidding around, and we are actually, you know, serious though about our frustration with how things are going as well. Because
our frustration with not being able to observe the true U.S. trade organization within the United States, and being propped up on this circuit clown dipshittery of these morons that are no, they're either ignorant or stupid, and I don't know which one, but both of them are guilty. Like I don't know.
It's a combination of both. The ones that have been there for a long time, they were installed there because they were yes people, and they were going to do what they're told to do. And the few that weren't and challenged the system, well, they usually didn't make it very long. And I mean,
that's because they didn't have their TWIC card.
Yeah,
by the way,
and they got freaking buried somewhere along with their families, because we're going to challenge the system. So, all right, well, Kelly, you want to go through a few questions and stuff, and then
we just have a couple.
Okay.
Hold on, I want to read something. Sure. So, you posted this, right? I just got this, by the way. I just got this, right?
That was the book, yes. Captain posted that.
Okay, so let me tell you something. I have been an international bar member, okay, for about 2.5 years. I have never received an article or periodical ever. And then all of a sudden, I checked my mail the other day, and this came in. And this thing has some really interesting information that when I said that we're going to start working on, like, going through, and a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about is the International Bar Association's position on a lot of this stuff. And we're going to go through a lot of these articles. But if you don't mind, I'd like to read one part, because they're talking about the 92,000 beds. Okay? So it says, beyond the visible department of heavily armed agents in the U.S. cities, the government has quietly expanded detention capacity to keep up with the pace of arrests. Federal documents reportedly show leases and office expansions in more than 150 locations nationwide. These sites place ICE personnel deep within American communities, including near schools, health centers, and places of worship. What has occurred so far represents only the initial phase. An internal ICE memo from February released by the New Hampshire's governor outlines a plan to spend $38.3 billion on an ICE detention re-engineering initiative. The plan would double detention capacity to 92,600 beds by September 2026. Regional processing centers would serve as staging locations for 1,000 to 1,500 detainees for short stays of 3 to 7 days, while larger hub facilities could house 7 to 10,000 for up to 60 days prior to international removals.
What do you guys think of that?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And, if you have been paying attention, there has been a lot of these purchases, just like it's talking about, for this very thing, all the way from Seattle, Washington, and the Washington area to federal land, Texas land, that was actually donated to Homeland Security for this very purpose. And I mean, major freaking land for this very purpose here in Texas.
I want to focus on two parts of it. ICE detention re-engineering initiatives and international removals.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked a lot about jurisdictions, and I've talked a lot about when this game's over with, you will jurisdictionally be moved into a jurisdiction of your capacity. And if you cannot function there, you may end up in a colony. I've said that probably for a year and a half. That is, in my opinion, that's what this is leading to. They are going to reorganize the social and civic infrastructure of the Western Hemisphere. There are people that cannot function socially. They do not have the skills. They are either going to go to a re-engineering facility to educate them, to get them up to speed, or they are going to be remanded to a community restrained institution.
And
we are going back to a society.
Yeah, I don't want people to freak
where
out.
You do not have to lock your doors.
Yeah, well, I don't want people to freak out and think that you're going to get just thrown in freaking rehabilitation.
No, it'll be for cause.
No, I
It'll be
get
for
that.
cause.
That's
It's
why I want
continual
people
behavior.
to understand it will be for cause, and it will be because you're not actually doing what you're supposed to. And so this is one of those things that I have talked about because I'd already seen it, is that these borders and by passports are not actually, when we go down the road here, not initially, but down the road, we won't have to have passports anymore. We won't have to be able to have that kind of where you have to get a visa to go to another country. You will be able to freely travel and move about as will, unless you become a problem. And I mean, a problem means that you're doing something that is socially unacceptable
I don't know, you guys.
to civilian
46 minutes
society.
left.
Something inhumane, you're doing something
46.
illegal, crossing somebody,
Breach of trust, fraud,
whatever.
waste, and
Yes,
abuse.
something along those lines that you would be criminally prosecuted and you would actually get into trouble for. And so, how are they going to be able to initially implement that is through the financial system that we will all be a part of, that you will be restricted in your ability to travel.
I'm going to save the rest of it for later. We got 45. I'm going to play a few other ones here. I'm going to go to 4 o'clock. About 9 minutes.
Mom and dad back in the US are going to pay for it, and mom and dad have other expenses. Let's just be very, maybe mom and dad want to like diversify into some more interesting opportunities, and yet we've got the kids that would be Europe, at our coattails, begging and begging and begging for this, that, and the other. And so they've been wanting to continue on with Ukraine, and the president isn't convinced that that is really the best use, shall we say, of our resources. I mean, it's a debate that's interesting and I'm sure worth having. I just look at the numbers and I'm like, okay, so NATO was 12 countries when it started. Now it's up to 32. And now we've got this disaster with Russia, and thousands and thousands and thousands of people are dying. I mean, that's never really ideal, right? Because you don't want people dying. I don't see the Pope saying a whole lot about Ukraine in the same way he is Iran, but it's neither here nor there. What I want to get back to is Zelensky lying to us? Because this is what Marco Rubio had to say about one Mr. Zelensky regarding the negotiations of a peace deal there with Ukraine. Don't forget, the president did negotiate that 3-day peace deal, and now he wants more. Zelensky says there's all these strings attached, and Marco says, nope, he's lying.
The U.S. tells Zelensky that security guarantees depend on withdrawal from Donbass.
That's a lie. And I saw him say that, and it's unfortunate he would say that because he knows that's not true, and that's not what he was told. What he was told is the obvious. Security guarantees are not going to kick in until there's an end to a war, because otherwise you're getting yourself involved in the war. Okay, what is a security guarantee? It is troops that are willing to step in and secure. If you put that in place now, that means you're injecting yourself in the war. What he was told very clearly, and he should have understood it, is that the security guarantees come only after there is an end to the war. But that was not attached to unless he gives up territory. I don't know why he says these things. They're just not true.
What is the U.S. position on Donbass?
We told the Ukrainian side what the Russians are insisting on. We're not advocating for it. We've explained it to them. It's their choice to make. It's not for us to make for them. We've never told them they have to take it or leave it. The role we have played is to try to figure out what both sides want and see if we can bridge the middle ground. The decision ultimately is up to Ukraine. If they don't want to make certain decisions or certain concessions, then the war keeps going.
The war keeps going. Okay. So this was a little bit of an echo of what we saw maybe about a year or so ago when Zelensky was there in the White House and Trump really let him have it. You gotta wind down this whole ordeal because, one, too many lives are being lost, and two, it's costing too much money that we just don't have. And we especially don't have it when our quote unquote allies are not willing to step up to the plate and do sort of the basics, right? The very, very, very basics. And by basics, I mean, can you just even like maybe act a little bit nicer? What about Germany? This guy, he's going to be out. We're talking about Keir Starmer going out. We're talking about Georgia Meloni. We'll see. I don't know. Well, Macron is done. I mean, it's like a whole new Europe, right? And this guy, Fred Merz, he's allegedly on his way out too, because even his own party's mad at him because, well, he said some things about the U.S. and the president he probably shouldn't have. Really, really dumb. He is trying to sing a new tune. He's out there like trying to say, oh, Iran, they can't have a nuclear weapon now. They can't do this. They can't do that. And we're going to be here. We're going to help. We're even going to lead the way for Europe. By almighty, like he should. He's like, we're going to take over. I mean, gosh, Germany hasn't had a chance to do this since World War II. Imagine that. I think it's a different Germany now. I'm gonna give them a pass and say, hey, if you guys want to take over the responsibility of security in Europe, be our guest. A secure Europe is a better Europe for us. We want our allies to be able to stand on their own 2 feet and not be sucking their thumbs and begging mom and dad every 2 seconds for more money for problems that we don't want to get ourselves in. So this is the guy in Germany, and you know the deal. He went out there and started saying that, well, I'll play it for you a little bit because we don't want to listen to the German.
Ich erkenne im Augenblick nicht, welche
He said, at the moment, I can't tell what strategic exit the Americans are pursuing. He then went on to say, especially since the Iranians are obviously negotiating very skillfully, or perhaps very skillfully refusing to negotiate. He went on to say they're letting the Americans travel to Islamabad only to come back empty-handed. And then an entire nation, he said, is being humiliated by the Iranian leadership, by the IRGC, these so-called Revolutionary Guards. So yeah, that didn't go over well. And the reality, or the upshot of that one, was Trump hit him with 25% tariffs and said, we're taking 5,000 troops out, probably more. And right now, my intel is that they're looking at moving those troops not actually entirely out of Europe, but actually moving them to Poland, where, if you think about it, like, for 2 seconds, right? I mean, let's assume that the boogeyman is Russia for a second. If the boogeyman is Russia, then what are the troops doing in Germany anyway? Right? Wouldn't you want them kind of closer to the boogeyman, for goodness sakes? Anyway, they're begging for forgiveness. The FT's come out against him. You've had, whoopsie daisy, you can't see me there. Let me move this over just a little bit. This is the FT saying that it's, handwriting's on the wall for this guy. The Germans are like, what did you do? And even the New York Times is like, yeah, he kind of misjudged the entire situation and perhaps how annoyed Donald Trump would be. And he's annoyed. Trust me. Well, don't trust me and listen to him.
The amazing thing is they use the Strait of Hormuz. We don't. We don't use it. We don't need it. We have a lot of oil. Well, wait a minute. And they use it. We don't. And you would have thought they would have said, we would love to help you. But they didn't, which I think was and Germany, I mean, he's doing a terrible job. He's got immigration problems. He's got energy problems. He's got problems of all kinds. And he's got a big problem with Ukraine because they're in that mess. Mm-hmm. And he criticized me for doing the whole thing with Iran. But I said, would you like to have a nuclear weapon in the hands of Iran? He said, no, I don't. I said, well, then I guess I'm right. He didn't have any answer to that.
You better believe he's right? We can't have a nuclear weapon in the hands of Iran. So, hey, Germany, you know what? If you're going to build up your military, by the way, why are you looking to us still? They're all freaking out right now. And by the way, they're super worried about this 25% tariff because it's going to hit their auto sector. I spoke with a source from that area of the world this weekend who told me this is going to decimate. This is going to send them into a recession. It is 6% of the economy. But those German automakers, they actually have complete carryover, right? It's so massive and so important. And they are going to be in a very, very bad spot with those tariffs. So, if people aren't buying German automakers, then I don't know what to tell them. On top of which, you're going to lose 5,000 troops, possibly more.
Well, I guess I won't be able to watch that one, huh? I'm going to wrap everything up. Then when we come back at 6, we'll do 2 hours of short videos. We got a lot. We had 3. We got another Billy that's about 13 minutes. So that will give us 4 Billy. Then we did a Nick Shirley and stuff. So over an hour. That was a big one. I think that Captain Ron, right? Horizon. So everybody have a good break. And I'll be back at 6 for a few hours before the game tonight. And thanks, mods. Kay, Michael, Lucy, Carol, Tim, and Kay, get your sleep. Hope we'll see you back at 6. And God bless everybody. Love all. Remember, please hit like. Stay safe, stay strong, keep it big. Everybody. Signing off for the show number 1. Chico Dude. See you in a little bit.